hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're going to have a nicer stream than yesterday. I mean, it's interesting to use the term nicer. I guess I wouldn't use that term necessarily because we're going to be talking about, amongst other things, Holocaust Remembrance, Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is not a nice topic, obviously, but not going to be as angry today, although I do stand by everything I said yesterday until and this is Ontario, but this is also the world, until we either drop these stupid quorum requirements or start enforcing expectations on attendance the same way we enforce expectations on financial payment. The Masons who care are going to continue to burn out until they have nothing left, and they're going to keep on leaving, and the numbers of Freemasons are going to keep on dropping. And Freemasonry won't deserve to continue. It's unfortunate, but that is the case. And that's not true, and that's not unique to me that's not unique to me, that's not unique to Ontario. I can assure you there are Masons across North America that are getting absolutely burned out. And that burnout is affecting their extent to which they want to continue. It's affecting the extent to which I want to continue. And it's not fair, right? It's just not fair. So let's give it some time though. Let's see who joins. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thank you all for being here, and I hope everybody is doing well. What's up, I can't pronounce your name. TNRTV. Welcome. How's it going? Thank you for being here. Please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well, though. I hope you're doing well also. As always, the first hour, we just hang out, wait to see who joins. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear it. Another stone to quarry, or another stone to set might be the better term, but yes. How's it going, Captain Blackbird? I hope you're doing well. Please take a moment, hit that like button and that subscribe button, and thank you for being here. Let me know how your day is going. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral. I'd love to hear them. Whoa, that's quite the... I just noticed your picture. This is a Nazi-free zone. What's up with the picture? Maybe let's switch it up there a little bit. Although I am doing well also. This whole freedom of speech thing does not include the Nazis. I am the guy they call Coconut Head. Please take a moment, hit that like button and the subscribe button, especially today, though any day, I suppose, but today is Holocaust Remembrance Day, Yom HaShoah. Well, this is an irony-free zone as well. Usually irony is very hard to communicate effectively on social media because people can't read tone. And I don't really want to look at a swastika as a general rule of thumb. Online bully. Who is Scott the Blind Fury? Sometimes This idea of power is overrated. Well, I'm sure it's a real icebreaker, but I'm not sure it's the best icebreaker. Why Vin? I'm sure that he did. I mean, like, I'm not a Christian myself. There are many people who are Christians within Freemasonry. Freemasonry is not a religion, right? Freemasonry, they have many different faiths represented. We're going to give it some time. We're going to wait to see who joins. As always, please take a moment, hit like and subscribe. You yapping again. Thank you. You yapping again. You as well. Please take a moment, hit like and subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Well, I mean, I hope that's not me because I think eugenics are pretty terrible, but okay. I guess you can believe whatever you want, even if it's a crazy thing to believe. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you're doing well. I mean, I think that anger is understandable. Um, I don't have an anger towards is I try never to have an anger towards inanimate objects or like states or political like entities per se. I have an anger towards the government of Israel, and I think that anger is very well deserved. A state itself, it's like you can't really be angry at a state per se or a political entity per se because it doesn't have agency, right? It just does what the politicians kind of allow it to do. I know that seems like splitting hairs, but I'm not sure if it is. I think there's a legitimate amount of hair splitting there. Except billionaires. Well, I mean, even billionaires. I don't like to be angry at billionaires, though I definitely think there's coming a point where the wealth inequity is pretty. It's not going to lead to any good results, political or otherwise. I mean, there's some truth to that, Captain Blackbird. Yeah, well, I mean, definitely being angry at individuals makes more sense than being angry at a state. Being angry at a government, even because government is kind of it's not a living entity. But people make choices without a doubt. And so, yeah, there's some sense to that. I get what you're saying. I don't disagree. I don't disagree by any means. Certainly, individuals. It makes the most sense to be angry at an individual. Well, I don't know if they need to be punished, but I think you could argue they need to be, I don't even know what the word is, not punished, but taxed at a higher rate, that's for sure, which isn't punishment. I just think it's politically unsustainable to have this level of wealth disparity. Shrey, well, I hope that anger doesn't stop you from hitting the like button and the subscribe button before you proceed with anything else. Yeah, that's very true. And look, I can understand hatred towards certain political figures, without a doubt. I'm a member of a lodge in Israel and I'm proud of it, but I have a lot of, I don't know if I'd use the term hatred per se, a lot of anger towards decisions that are being made by the government and particularly people in the government of Israel, which I think is monstrous in some ways. Um, all of them are guilty of exploiting society. I mean, certainly they're guilty of taking advantage of a tax system. Whether that's exploitation or not, I don't know. Well, I do think the world would be better if we remembered to view each other first and foremost as, if we remembered to view each other first and foremost as one brother, right? Or as a brotherhood under man, and stop worrying so much about borders and race and religion and whatever else it might be. I just don't think that's helpful. And I think that's what leads to a lot of the anger and a lot of the harming that we do to people is when we forget that they are ultimately our brothers, that they come from the same nature as us, you know? Well, I can't see your profile picture very well, EXO. It's a little bit too small. What are your favorite games? Geometry Dash, Roblox. I enjoy Dash. Maybe I'll play it one day on stream. I'll share the screen and we'll play it together. That would be a lot of fun. I didn't know that I blocked you, but I'm sure there was a reason for it. So whatever you did, don't do it again. And I have no idea what anybody is. You're all behind a screen at the moment. I've beaten 3 demons. You mean in the games? Grant, I mean, I love America. I would be very sad if America were to go away, but that doesn't mean that I don't recognize that there's a lot of issues right now in the United States, and I'm not sure what we're going to see happen to it. I hope I hope it continues though to exist and to maybe get itself back on right track. Um, I mean, here's what I'll say. I don't ask people their ages, but I will say always make sure if you're under 18, you have your parents' permission to be here and be on stream. But let's not ask people on the chat for their specific ages or for personal information. And good on you, Captain, good on you, EXO, for not necessarily answering. But, this is an adult stream. I do swear. I do get angry sometimes, so keep that in mind. I have been known to get loud and swear and say a lot of words. No worries, Captain Blackbird. No worries at all. Not that big of a deal. By the way, to anybody who purchased some of those coins or special items, they are in the mail, so you should be getting them soon. Wesh, please hit like and subscribe. Do I support Israel? I mean, I'm a member of a lodge in Israel. I would suppose I'm a two-stater. I believe that there should be an Israeli state and a Palestinian state. I will say the actions of the current government I'm not a fan of at all. I don't like them even a little bit. So, there you go. Sometimes people have higher pitched voices. That can happen. I don't know. Like I said, however old you are, just make sure if you're under 18, you have your parents' permission to be on stream, on YouTube in general, really online at all, right? You should always have your parents' permission before being online if you're a kid, and be extra, extra careful. And if you're an adult, well, then still be extra, extra careful because there's lots of scams and lots of things going around. So, I mean, I know very little about the Greater Israel Plan. I mean, the Masonic, like the Greater Israel Plan would be a political ideology or maybe a religious ideology. Um, I don't know. Freemasonry is neither political nor religious. So some Masons, you'll have a wide variety of opinions on it based on the Mason. I mean, I think in general, once you start to mess with borders, you're in trouble. And look, I think Freemasonry exists. Sorry, Freemasonry exists. The state of Israel exists as it is now. Whatever borders it has, I would say pre 1967, those should be the borders that you set, and that's it. And that is the country, and that is its borders. And you create a separate state for the Palestinians, and then every other country remains exactly as is with its current borders. Expansionism leads to chaos, whether it's expansionism of Israel or any other country, whether it's expansionism for religious reasons, political reasons, or both, or even in some cases, defense expectations. Freemasonry was not set up by bankers. Freemasonry was set up by stonemasons. Yes, it was. Hooray for Canada and hooray for Tim Hortons. Yeah, but you're the winner, Redneck. Please hit like and subscribe. Hello, Ter Bosnia Kid. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. I would be very, very grateful if you did that, and I hope that you are doing well. You are cozy. Hello, you are cozy. I hope you're doing well. Please hit like and subscribe. The name, I mean, I am not an expert on the history of Israel, but it wasn't set up by bankers. It was set up by different politicians within, for example, England, much of Europe. So it sounds vaguely anti-Semitic to say bankers. Is Freemasonry? Freemasonry is not. Freemasonry is not political. We have Freemasons who are plumbers, Freemasons who are doctors, and everything in between. Freemasons who are custodians, retired. Some of them are involved in politics. The vast majority are not. But being a Freemason does not get you into politics, nor guarantee you a position, free or otherwise. Well, George Washington was a politician, obviously. So was, I mean, I guess Paul Revere, Winston Churchill, FDR, Truman, John A. Macdonald, Bolivar. That doesn't mean that they became politicians because they were Freemasons. Rather, maybe Freemasonry gave them some ideas and some ethics which they applied to their political careers. I am in Windsor, Ontario. Born and raised in Winnipeg, currently live in Windsor. John A. Macdonald, first Prime Minister of Canada. Although honestly, and this is going to be a bad thing to say because I'm a Canadian, I know, but I honestly think Dunkin' Donuts coffee is better than Tim Hortons coffee. So nobody kick me out of Canada, please. But there you go. I know Captain Blackbird, right? It is blasphemy, but it's true. It's true. Actually, Dunkin' Donuts coffee is one of my favorite types of coffee ever. I love it. We're just going to keep hanging out, waiting to see who joins. Please take a moment, hit like, and subscribe. Captain Blackbird, can you send some of it to me? I'd be much appreciative. You can find my mailing address on my website. Or just super chat and you'll get it that way. By the way, $2 super chat and you'll hear your comments read out text to speech. Hello, Dino Drawing Kid. How's it going? I don't know if you actually are a kid, but if you're under 18, make sure you have your parents' permission to be on stream. How's it going? Thank you for being here, and I hope you're doing well. Why would I say that? Um, N hyphen is 7. Are you 7? Then definitely make sure you have your parents' permission to be on stream. Um, I mean, Freemasonry, look, like any other organization that you join, the more people you know, the better your networking capabilities will be. So, sure, you'll meet more people, but if you're joining Freemasonry exclusively for connections, you can do that by joining almost any group. You could join that by, you could do that by joining a flag football league, right? The purpose of Freemasonry isn't necessarily or inherently about connections for business or otherwise. But sure, there are networks. Dino, you're going to find yourself in a timeout in a second if you keep saying that. Okay. I mean, but it's more connections. What matters isn't the brotherhood, it's the numbers, right? Like, if your goal is connection, then a brotherhood of 5 isn't as helpful as, a membership. A brotherhood of 5 isn't helpful as 30 friends, whether they're brothers or not. So, what you need to look at is how many people are showing up, not necessarily the idea of brotherhood or friendship or teammate or whatever it is. Am I Indian? No, I am Canadian, born and raised in Winnipeg, currently live in Windsor. But Freemasonry has many Indian members, both like Indigenous or First Nations people and from India. Nice. How's it going? Like I was saying, Dad, I'm going to be nicer on this stream. I still think I'm 100% correct, unless we within Freemasonry drop our stupid quorum requirements or start to enforce attendance. All you're doing is punishing Masons who show up in favor of those who don't, and Freemasons are getting burned out and exhausted. It's completely unfair to say you expect that you're okay with individuals missing lodges, but the lodges themselves need to have a quorum. Having said that, so be it. I'm just one guy, not that important. But maybe I'm more important, or maybe every Mason is more important than they realize. Do young people join the lodge? I mean, younger people are joining lodges. The word often, I don't know what the answer is. Because I don't know what often means, right? Generally, newer membership is almost always younger, under 30, at least in my experience. Sometimes you have men, I've known a few men in their actually 70s who decided to join. Because it was like always their dream, but they were working and too busy and decided they would join later. But in my experience, when it comes to Freemasonry, yes, we have newer members who are younger, but they're not joining at an often enough level to sustain it, or they're joining but not sticking around. They may remain a member, but they don't attend regularly. If you ask them why they're not attending, they'll tell you it's not the lodge, it's work and family commitments. And that's one of the biggest issues you have with younger people joining. It's one of the reasons why, in some ways, I think we should maybe require membership to be older before they join. When you join at 21, 22, in some places in the States, 18, 19, it's easy to think that you'll remain active and involved for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. But once you have a wife, have a kid, have a family, have responsibilities, all of a sudden things start to change. And suddenly you have younger members dropping out of lineups, not staying after their masters, not staying as past masters, not dedicating themselves to this thing called Freemasonry, which just puts more work on the people already doing the work. Jethro may have been a Freemason, but we don't think so. The evidence actually points to a doctor. I forget the name. And Freemasonry is adding to the burnout. As I spit up my cookie, Freemasonry is adding to people's burnout. So, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, again, so I mean, what does Freemason keep you busy with? I mean, see, here's the problem, and here's why that's such a hard question to answer. Um, and there's a reason for that, Freedom Heart Farm. By the way, Freedom Heart Farm, please hit like and subscribe. In theory, Freemasonry doesn't have to keep you busy with anything, right? You can join Freemasonry, go to your initiation, and I'm speaking specifically for Ontario here, then never show up to another lodge meeting, pay your dues every year, and you'll be perfectly fine. It's like asking, what does being a gym member keep you busy with? The membership itself doesn't keep you busy at all. But let's say you decide that you actually want Freemasonry and your lodge to exist, to do well, to thrive, to grow. Well, then you have to do things, and the Grand Lodge will expect you to do things. They'll tell you you don't have to keep busy, but we'll take your charter. So you have to attend meetings. There's at least 2 meetings a month. If you don't, maybe your lodge survives, maybe it doesn't, but it's more likely it won't survive. It's more likely the lodge will die if you don't attend. You have to, as a worshipful master, a warden, attend and visit other lodges for their special events and celebrations, specifically dinners, specifically official visits, specifically installations. Again, you don't have to, but if you don't, maybe the lodge isn't going to survive. Certainly the district will suffer. You have to fill out paperwork and forms, building compliance forms. They call them L forms here. Secretarial forms, you have to do your budgeting, your banking. You have to make sure you have a bank account. You have to keep your building clean. You have to keep your building operational. All of this stuff takes time. All this stuff takes work. There are fewer and fewer Masons willing to do that work, and yet Grand Lodges keep expecting more and more of that work to happen and be done, and are willing to threaten lodges with going dark, with whatever it is, like pulling charters. It's insane. I spent 50 hours a week on Freemasonry a few years ago, excuse me. You can stay home, so light free. So no, you don't have to attend whether you are or not a Freemason. That's the point. There would be light free. You're not a Mason. There would be no way to distinguish you versus a Mason in a lot of cases, because both of you dedicate the exact same amount of time to it, which is 0 hours. The difference is the one brother might dedicate, a couple $100 per year to it. But day to day, practically, there's no difference between a non-Mason and a Mason who stays home for years at a time. It is. That's why the burnout is happening. And the answer is going to be, well, you don't have to dedicate yourself to it. which is fine, but then the lodge dies, right? They hold the lodge hostage. They hold this thing that you love hostage to your love of it. It's kind of like saying, you don't have to work for a living, and you don't, but then you starve to death. You don't have to go to lodge and dedicate yourself to it. No, but then the lodge goes dark. It's holding the thing you love hostage against your burnout and exhaustion, and it's not fair. Well, I mean, Captain Blackbird, Freemasonry shouldn't take so much time, and it wouldn't have to take so much time if everybody contributed equally with their time, right? Like, that's the point. Um, it shouldn't be that heavy to lift a big object if enough people are willing to shoulder the weight and lift together. The reason Freemasonry takes so much time and takes so much from so many, or sorry, Freemasonry takes so much from so few because so many refuse to help and refuse to support it. And, Grand Lodge will not reduce the requirements on lodges. They will not reduce the effort that is expected from worshipful masters and secretaries, but yet they will be perfectly comfortable with with Masons not showing up. It's unfair. Freemasonry doesn't have to result in burnout and exhaustion. It does because of the actions of our Grand Lodges. Um, oh, that's pretty funny, Elite Bloodline. I will say this to you, that's pretty funny. But you don't. You can just starve to death, right? Like, that's the Faustian bargain they make with you, Cacao Sci-Fi. Please hit like and subscribe. They say this bargain of, you don't have to do it, but if you don't, I guess the lodge goes dark. Or I guess there's a punishment of some sort. I guess there's a fine. And they don't punish you, they punish the whole lodge. But if you love the lodge, what's the difference? Um, well, but the question is, um, like, does the mosque require, like, if that was the case, right? Like, the mosque will close down if it's not just a matter of supply and demand or lack of attendance. Like, I'm trying to think of how to describe it in a way that makes sense. There is no. I don't know actually how it works. Okay, I can't speak to a mosque per se. The point is, within Freemasonry, we are willing to say there are requirements on members, particularly financial requirements. We're willing to say you are expected to pay dues or you'll be suspended. You'll no longer be a Freemason, right? It's a club. You're no longer able to be a Freemason because you didn't meet this. But we're not willing to set expectations on attendance. You're a Muslim, whether there's a mosque in your community or not, right? Muslim is a religion. It's not required of having a mosque there. So you can be one anywhere. Now, maybe you could say you should attend, but the religion itself is not based on whether there's a membership in a particular place. Freemasonry, they say you're a Freemason if you're a member and you're my brother, yet you're not pulling your weight in keeping the lodge afloat. But that is true in some ways of every organization. Like, any organization that does not require attendance and is completely volunteer based are struggling. Some, at least, are respectful enough and kind enough to not have quorum requirements that put more and more pressure on fewer and fewer people, or financial pressures, which indicate they care more about the money than the attendance. XI, my question is, have you hit the like and subscribe button? I am from Canada. It's 1:38 here. Rapid, I don't think that's the case. And Freemasonry never kept the members secret. That's kind of a misunderstanding of the history of Freemasonry. I can't say I tell other people if they are Freemasons or not, but I can say I'm a Freemason, and many people announce to the public their Freemasonry. Jim, doesn't seem that is the case right now, but okay. Hello, Lee. How's it going? Thank you for being here. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having an excellent day. That's true, Rapid Dog, but you need to be really, really careful about that because just because you see something about Freemasonry on the internet doesn't mean it's accurate and doesn't mean it's true. Um, so unless you're a Mason yourself, you're not going to know anything. Also, for sure. Also, just because you find it online, and even if it's accurate, doesn't mean you understand it. The example I've given a million times is like riding a bicycle. You can find anything you want about bicycles online. You can find anything you want about bicycles on, on a website or the library. But until you've actually ridden the bicycle, you don't really understand it. Freemasonry is the same way. Until you take the time to, um, until you take the time to actually ride the bike, you're not going to understand it. If you're not a Freemason, if you're not attending meetings, whatever it might be, you're not truly going to understand it, and you're not truly going to understand what it is. I am up to date on all my boosters. I was probably sounding have a cold because I was yelling on stream last night and getting really cranky and swearing quite loudly because I'm burnt out and tired. Not of the stream, but of Freemasonry. The only Americans who get that award, which award? Um, no, it is a black coffee because the best type of coffee to have is black coffee. Well, so that's kind of the point, Freedom Heart Farm, and that's kind of what I've been saying. There is no question that clubs, groups, organizations like Freemasonry make the world better and make our lives easier. There's no doubt they help us survive. And of course they do, right? We're human beings. And the nature of humanity is such that we do better in groups. We do better with others. We do better when we're in a group. In fact, what we've seen many, many times is that being a Freemason actually increases your life expectancy, actually increases the life expectancy of those around you, helps the community be better and healthier and stronger. And so that's why I get so mad and so frustrated when I see things that are killing Freemasonry and choices being made by Grand Lodges that are killing Freemasonry. I think oftentimes those choices are made out of cowardice. They're afraid. But it sounds foolish, but it's not. It's people's lives. It really is. It's people's life expectancy. It's extra years spent with their family, with their kids, with their grandkids. It's communities that are better. It's communities that are stronger. It's communities that are healthier. And to every Mason who also doesn't show up to lodge, who allows lodges to go dark because of lack of attendance and participation, they wonder why it is that we're so frustrated, and they wonder why Freemasonry is declining. This is why. And eventually, when there's no more benevolence to give, when there's no more efforts to give, when there's no more lodges to support communities, when our buildings shut down, what happens? Like, what do we think would happen? Um, I can't speak to the world life expectancy going up, but I can speak to our life expectancy as a Freemason being higher, which it absolutely is. Um, Thank you, Freedom Heart. I hope you've hit the like button and the subscribe button. If you want to help me do this promotions, please, please, please consider a super chat. Just $2 and you'll hear your super chat read out text to speech. And I would be grateful. Well, then they're going to be sorely disappointed. I cannot think of a bigger waste of time than an intelligence agency infiltrating Freemasonry, which has no political power or political influence. Cyclic discipline, by the way, Abera, please hit like and subscribe. I would be truly grateful. Mr. Keeps is back. By the way, Mr. Keeps, I'm still not apologizing for anything, but I will say you did send me a super chat. I was grateful for that, so I did. You do have some coins coming your way. Some of these coins. Here. 5 random ones. I think you got some from the Philippines in there. Oh, the gray tone. Who said it? I can't think of the person who said that quote. Your lawyer would love that quote. Which quote? By the way, I'm still working on trying to figure out, like, I was a lawyer. I still am. Well, I'm suspended. I don't practice law. I got administratively suspended because when I stopped practicing, I never dealt with a couple administrative tasks, Groucho Marx, so it ended up getting suspended. So I'm finally dealing with that now, trying to get it sorted out and resolved. I mean, I don't ever plan to practice law, but I did go to law school, so it's one of those things where I'd like to have, at least to a certain extent, it dealt with. Silver coin. All right, you do you, Mr. Keeps. Nobody has to donate. Nobody has to watch. I mean, I'm grateful for the people who do, but I'm not going to pull punches either. But what I think, what's the contempt in court? So that's very interesting, Abe Bearhow. What is the brand value that you think Freemasonry has? I don't agree or disagree necessarily, because definitely Freemasonry has a brand. What is the value of that brand, do you think? Because I think that's one of the questions that we in Freemasonry are struggling with. What is the brand of Freemasonry? What does it actually mean? I think, unfortunately, that brand value is declining as the relevance of Freemasonry declines. It would, in some ways, be better. Like, obviously, what I would like and want most of all is for Freemasonry to be universally respected, obviously. But in some ways, it's better to be universally hated, is the other alternative, as opposed to people just not thinking about it at all. It's one of those, I think it was a political quote I once heard, which is, it's better to be hated on the first page than loved on the last page. There is some truth to that. Now, obviously, Freemasonry doesn't deserve any hatred because Freemasonry as an organization has done a lot of good for the world, and Freemasons do a lot of good for the world. But to be loved on the last page isn't a very good thing either, necessarily, because irrelevance is almost as bad as hatred. Moses said, "Let my people be free, free Palestine." I mean, I'm a two-stater. I guess that's what I can say about that. Blue, what am I joking about? Oh, I'm sorry that it was ignored. CD, I apologize. Was it $10 or more? Because then you'd be eligible for some of these coins. If I did miss it, I very much apologize for that. It does happen, though. Being a live streamer, I'm going to say this. And look, I'm not a brain surgeon. I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not going to pretend like what I do is the hardest thing in the world, because obviously it's not. But what I will say is being a live streamer is actually sometimes harder than people think. One of the hard parts is keeping track of the chat, trying to know what to respond to, what to not. I try my best to respond to super chats because obviously they're highlighted and it's really appreciated. But if I miss it, I do apologize. What I also try to say sometimes, right, is like yesterday when I was losing my mind, for valid reasons, I think, but losing my mind, I did make a note at the start saying I'm not really going to respond to comments. I'm not really going to respond to super chats for that time. Well, thank you, CD, for that. I appreciate that. Well, I did go to law school. I did finish the requirements. I never really practiced, though. I'm not begging, but I want to be a content creator because I want to turn my passion for Freemasonry into a profession. I want to dedicate my life to Freemasonry to show that you actually can do it. But also, I want to see Freemasonry grow, and I'm starting to realize I can't do it alone. I need help. and I need help from members. I need them to show up. And it's just that simple. Yes, we did invent gravity. A swim, silly rock. We are all living for the first time. This is my first go at being alive. I think during this first go, I've done some things very well and some things very badly. And people can decide which is which. But I can say this, I've always tried my best and I've always tried to be honest. Um, I paid for my school, they didn't. And I've always done the best I can with what I think I need to do. So, and whether that's good enough or not, who knows? I don't really think about it in those terms. Maybe once I pass away and I make it wherever it is I'm going, I'll find out that I failed miserably. Sometimes it does feel like I'm failing pretty miserably. Maybe I'll find out that I actually succeeded quite well. Who knows? And that's the problem, Captain Blackbird, is, well, I mean, I wouldn't be an empty shell because I would have professional wrestling and scary movies and a lot of other things I love. But definitely Freemasonry is what I've dedicated myself to more than anything else. And to see it dying out, a death that doesn't have to happen, it's really hard to see. There's no doubt about that. And to not necessarily or to not necessarily be able to fix it. I think that's the hardest part. To see how it could be fixed, but to not be able necessarily to do it, or to not be able to do it alone. That's the problem. If I could fix it by myself, there'd be no issue. The fact that I can't fix it by myself and need others. And there are, look, don't get me wrong, there are some incredible Masons who help me, but none of us can do it. There's just not enough of us working hard enough, right? If 10% of Freemasonry could fix the problems in Freemasonry, then the problems would be fixed, because probably we have 10% active in lodges. You need everybody, or if not everybody, way more than 10%. That's true, Mr. Keeps, but I'm not a big fan of that attitude. That's kind of like saying, if you see your country, well, that's kind of like saying if you see your work falling apart, your office falling apart, and you dedicate yourself to trying to fix it, and nobody else, or at least the bosses, don't want to help out. They go, well, you made the choice to try to fix this, not us. It's like, yeah, that's true, but that doesn't mean that, I mean, it's a good example of that I can think of is the television show The Pit. There's this really great scene where, so the pit there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens. The emergency room gets slammed by a whole bunch of catastrophes all at once, basically. So anyways, the shift ends. One of the doctors is leaving, and another doctor says to her, hey, we got really slammed here. We're going to stick around for a couple extra hours, not getting paid, but just stick around for a couple extra hours to help out, to help our brothers on the night shift out because they got so slammed. We don't want to leave them with a mess. And she responded, no, I'm leaving. My shift is done. I'm walking away. And you could say a lot of people were praising her and saying good for her for setting boundaries and walking away. It's like, okay, but what about all of her colleagues who are now in the shit and not getting any help? What about all the patients who show up and need assistance? And she could have helped them. She could have maybe saved their lives, right? She chose to walk away, and in the process, she chose to hurt the people that are relying on her. She's not the most important thing, right? And I'm not the most important thing. Freemasonry is the most important thing, or your work is the most important thing. You are not the most important thing. The things that you do are. And you want to say that it's okay to walk away and set boundaries, that's fine. But all you're doing is hurting society. Freemasonry lives and exists, as does the world, as a society, in the extra mile. How far extra are we willing to go to make this thing called society work? And if you're not willing to go that extra mile, don't be surprised when the whole thing collapses and then everybody gets hurt. Nice, Harry. Nice, Harry. Nice, Dad. Weird calling you Harry. Good for you. And good for you for having 2 plates in the deep freeze. That is smart. To do your part, yes, but you can't do everybody's part if they don't have to accept the org has failed. And I mean, that is, people have said that many times, Mr. Keeps, not just to me, but in many different, well, actually, very often to me. I remember when I worked at the jail and we were very short staffed, and I would stay late and I would take other people's work, me and somebody else. There's two of us doing like a 7-person job. And a few people told me, just don't do the extra work, and if the system falls apart, and then the system falls apart, so be it. And it's like, yeah, but I'm in a jail, I'm working with people who are need help, or I'm working to help victims who need support while the perpetrators are in custody or getting released. I mean, what, do you just walk away from that? Like, I remember, I'll give an example. When I was when I was working in the jail, we had a older gentleman who came in. He came in on assault charges. It was actually, what had happened is he suffered from dementia, like Alzheimer's, and he was in the car with his daughter, who was his caregiver, and he got confused and angry, and as you get, and he started to attack his daughter. Somebody saw it, called the police, didn't know what was happening, obviously. The police came, arrested him, ended up, he went to jail. They got a lawyer. Within 5 hours of him being in jail, talked to the judge. The lawyer, spoke with the judge, spoke with the police. Anyways, get him released. I call his daughter, because I was a person responsible for people when they got released, like discharge planning, to say, this person's getting released. Are you going to pick him up? She starts to cry, and I'm learning all this after the fact. But she was his primary caregiver. She was exhausted. She was burnt out. She was terrified of picking him up because he would get violent. She didn't know what to do. So, anyways, I told her, like, don't pick him up. It's not good for your safety. It's not good for your health. The point is, I stayed probably 4 hours late, didn't get overtime or anything like that, just to try to find this guy a place that he could go that would be safe for him, that would be helpful for him, and that would be okay for his daughter as well. The point is, the reason I had to do that is because we didn't have the staff to stay to do it. Should I have said self-care is more important and just walked away? Some people told me I should have. The point is, you're not the most important thing. It can't be all about you. Sometimes you have to be willing to sacrifice, but you're absolutely right, Mr. Keeps, and this is the point of burnout. This is what happens. And it's not me exclusively, but if fewer and fewer of you are doing more and more and more, sooner or later, you're going to burn out. And then people look at you and go, why are you so cranky? Why are you so mad? Why are you walking away? Why are you letting the lodge die? Why are you letting the lodge go dark? And you're like, well, I'm not, but I've been trying to do this for years. I mean, Mr. Keeps, I think that is something I would disagree with you on. When you say it's not heart surgery, you're right, it's not heart surgery. It's easier than being a heart surgeon. You're not wrong about that, certainly. Being a heart surgeon is way harder than, and way more important than being a Freemason. But Freemasonry is really important. It really matters. I've said this before. All the evidence shows that if you are a Freemason, you have higher life expectancy than non-Masons, because you're part of a group and a club. When a Masonic brother has a heart attack and people visit him, or when anybody gets visitors, but Masons are more likely to get visitors, you're 2.5 times more likely to not have another heart attack or a secondary issue than if you don't get any visitors. I know Masons, I know men and their families who have a roof over their head and food in their stomachs because Freemasonry stepped in with benevolence when it was needed and when it was required. I know, I know people who've gone to school because Freemasonry provided scholarships. I know people who, got work because Masonic buildings and lodges needed work done, hired contractors, whatever it is, they added to the economy and the architectural character of the community. I know people who kept themselves going because they knew there was going to be another lodge we need to go to and visit after thinking about self-harm. Freemasonry goes away, the entire world gets hurt, and the Masons get hurt. And I know Masons who, well, I know people who know how valuable Freemasonry is because they've got the help from Freemasonry that they need. I've seen it dozens of times, and then they don't show up and help Freemasonry after taking things from Freemasonry. I knew a guy who was in the hospital once. He was older. He was really struggling, but his wife told me that what kept him going was visits from other Masons and from knowing that when he got out of the hospital, he could attend another lodge meeting. That's what gave him the strength and that's what gave him the motivation to keep on working and not just lay down and die type of thing. If he didn't have that lodge to go to because Grand Lodge closes it down because people aren't showing up and we don't get our charter, what happens then? Um, I think a lot of the chat may think I'm boring, which I don't care. People can think I'm boring, they just don't have to show up. When there was a jail fight, I did not necessarily burn rubber, but I definitely, if I had to, I'd hit a button to indicate a code, blue, which was a fight. I think it was code blue was the code. Or I would yell for help and get the COs. COs, man, they do a hell of a job. It's exhausting to be a correctional officer. You talk about like a true first responder, without a doubt, without any doubt at all, the true first responders are correctional officers. They're the ones who show up. Like, they're responding to a fight, to a medical emergency, to a crisis, to self-harm. They're social workers. They're doing all this in like 30 seconds of an incident, right? Because they're right there. So nothing but respect to correctional officers. They don't get the respect they deserve. Alcohol, well, first of all, get some help. Second, um, hit the like and subscribe button. What do you think about Sweden? I would love to visit Sweden. I think it would be incredible. I think it would be absolutely incredible. So, how do you deal with burnout then, CD? Because burnout is absolutely, I mean, a lot of people are struggling with it, not just in Freemasonry, in life, right? A lot of people are getting burnt out and they're exhausted. Um, the weights experience, I mean, it's not just Freemasonry is burning people out, everything is burning people out, but a good way to think about it, right? A good way to, I think, consider it is you imagine there's a chart, right? Or a graph. And on one side of the graph over here, you have the healthiest, most well-adjusted human beings. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily they're the most physically fit or the most financially stable or the most mentally healthy, but on average, they are the most of all of those things. They are doing as well at life as they could be. Everything's super great. That's a small percentage of people. Then you have the middle, which is where most people live. It's a standard distribution, right? Where things could be better, things could be worse, things are okay. They're struggling, but they're making ends meet, they're getting by. That's where the majority of people are, somewhere in that thing, right? And then on the other side of it, you have people who are just falling apart. Their life is a mess. Their physical health is a disaster. Their mental health is a disaster. Their emotional health is a disaster. And they are, if not at the point, they are right on the point of living in a cardboard box on the street, massive drug addiction, whatever it might be, self-harm, right? That's the standard distribution of people. What burnout does is all the people who are more on the end of problematic, more on the ends of disaster, when burnout hits and they can't hack it anymore, that's when they go over into the disaster realm. That's when they start to leave their jobs because of drug addiction issues. They get fired because they're so angry. Their medical issues become too much. Whatever it is, they all end up on the side of not being able to contribute anymore to society because, of all these problems they have, which means everybody else that's left has to contribute more to society to make it work. But then they're contributing more, which means they get more burnt out, they develop more problems, they get more issues. So more and more people start to move from contributing to non-contributing. And eventually you get to a point where even the people who are relatively healthy and doing well are burning out and exhausted because more and more and more pressure is being put on them by everybody else who stops contributing. It's like, for example, why should you be healthy? Why should you be physically fit? Well, there's lots of reasons, but I would say one of them is you should be physically fit because if you end up in the hospital sick or ill, you are no longer able to contribute to society. Other people need to pick up your slack and contribute for you. Now, there are times when it's just out of your control. You have no choice. Genetic conditions, born with a disability, you're older and, it just is what it is. Not everybody who ends up with health conditions, in fact, maybe not the majority, is it exclusively based on the choices they have made. And obviously those people should be helped and supported and given whatever supports they need to allow them to contribute to society. Because many people with genetic conditions, disabilities, injuries, harms, still contribute greatly to society and still contribute greatly to the world. But if you choose to ignore health issues, if you choose to ignore your health, if you choose to make bad decisions, and then you end up in the hospital, well, suddenly everybody else has to pick up your slack. They have to pick up your slack at the office. They have to pick up your slack in the Masonic Lodge. They have to pick up your slack at home. So there you go. I don't think society is a lie. I think society is dependent on everybody working together to care and to support each other. And most people don't, unfortunately, right now. But we're working on it. Freemasonry is working on it. Freemasonry is trying our best to be better. Not every Freemason. I am. Others are within Freemasonry. The problem is not enough. I don't disagree with that, Lightfree. I do not disagree with that at all. No one is special. Anomalies do exist, and personal excellence. Personal excellence is not a conspiracy theory. The extent to which personal excellence will result in financial success might be a myth or conspiracy theory. In some ways, I think it probably is, to be honest. I don't necessarily see evidence that contributing or being personally excellent will inherently result in, success in life. I know a lot of people who are excellent at what they do and don't get rewarded for it. Rewarded, I don't like that term. But it's still maybe worth being excellent because you can look at yourself in the mirror and at least say, hey, I did my best. I was as excellent as I could be. If nothing else, maybe that's a good feeling. To know you tried your best, whether you fail or don't fail. And look, there are many times, I've been saying it, I've been feeling like a failure lately, trying my best to fight to keep these lodges growing and other people not showing up. And you realize maybe we can't, save it. Maybe we can't save Freemasonry. It's a bitter pill to swallow. Whether Freemasonry as an official organization exists or not, I would still do this channel because there's so much Masonic history to talk about. I would talk about why I think Freemasonry needs to exist to hopefully try to bring it back and return it, to its former glory. But it's a bitter pill to swallow to be a failure sometimes. And as we see these lodges struggling, it's hard not to feel that way. Um, chilling in the lodge user. Well, thank you for being here. Please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I mean, many people like to smoke cigars. You might not be allowed to in your lodge, so be very careful what the rules are. Um, but yeah, thank you for being here. We're going to give it a bit more time. Please hit like, please hit subscribe, and I hope that everybody is doing well. We're going to give it a couple more minutes. We're going to start talking about a couple of subjects today I wanted to mention. But keep in mind, burnout is also real because it has health effects. I'm just reading an article here. Shoppers Drug Mart gave her the wrong medication. Month later, she landed in the ER. It should have been a routine pharmacy pickup. Instead, Marissa Dawson says it turned into a months-long ordeal that ended in the emergency room and exposed gaps in the system meant to keep patients safe. I mean, some Freemasons love this channel. Some Freemasons hate this channel. I think most Freemasons don't care about this channel. I have no idea if they're planning to kick me out or not. But my point is I'm not going to pull punches and not be honest about how I'm feeling. And a lot of times they say if you're critiquing Grand Lodges, you get, kicked out. And if I do, so be it. I haven't heard anybody planning on it yet, but I do know they often don't like members critiquing Grand Lodges on the public. But I don't know what else to do because I see why Freemasonry is failing in some places, and I'm not going to be quiet about those things. I'm not going to be quiet about why I'm burnt out, why I'm failing, and why Freemasonry, unfortunately, in many areas is failing. If you want to join Freemasonry, you should, because it's still a noble pursuit and a noble cause. But keep in mind, it's going to be an uphill battle and a challenge to see Freemasonry return to what it once was and to see Freemasonry be what it once was. And if you say, does it need to be what it once was? Fine. What should it then be? No one seems to be able to answer that question. Because if it should be what it was like back in the 1800s, that's fine. But then stop requiring all of these insane rules and regulations and bylaws and checks and all the rest of it. Freemasonry doesn't need to exist perhaps the way it's always done. I mean, that's true. Things adapt, things change. But no one seems to have any idea of what that adaptation or change will look like. And they keep on trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're acting like Freemasonry doesn't need to necessarily change or be different, while at the same time ensuring that it's going to continue its decline into something completely different. You're asking people, you're asking 10%, you're asking about 22,000, 25,000 Freemasons to act in a manner that, or to maintain an organization that once upon a time had 100,000 members and has an infrastructure and setup designed for 100,000 members. Light free. If I have an accident, I'll be the first one to announce it on stream. Civic society is failing generally, hence the burnout. But it doesn't have to, and Freemasonry doesn't have to. Freemasonry is not like any other civic institution. It's unique and it has the tools to grow once again. Instead of her allergies improving, she noticed she was often flushed, felt dizzy. That's weird, Shrey. Your 4-year-old shouldn't love this channel. I do swear a lot, and it's not made for kids, but I mean, okay. I would suggest they watch, I don't know what Coco Melon is. Watch something designed for kids, not for this channel. Instead of her allergies improving, she noticed she was often flushed, felt dizzy, and struggled to breathe. I felt completely lethargic. I was very faint. By April, she says her symptoms continued to worsen until her mother had to drive her to the emergency room. That's where an emergency nurse checked her medication. Everything became clear. She had unknowingly been taking the wrong medication for months. I was just kind of confused. And I started thinking, what if this happened to my kid or any child? Dawson is one of tens of thousands of Canadians who experience medication mix-ups. These mix-ups happen because the entire system is burnt out, the medical system and every other system. civic institutions, etc. VHS, BMX, please hit like and subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. And I hope you guys are doing well. Oil has soared 7%. OPEC cuts demand forecast as Trump moves to block Iran ports. I mean, if Freemasonry makes it, he will be. I don't know where he's at, but he's for now. Let's say he's in a jurisdiction where you need to be at least 18 years of age to join. Will Freemasonry be around in 14 years? I don't know. Probably. Is probably enough? Is probably a good enough answer? I think that's worth asking the question. You say yes. Why do you say yes, VHS? And now you said no. So yes to what? No to what? And by the way, don't forget to please hit like and subscribe. I would truly appreciate it. Well, 33rd is a invitational degree, so you need to be invited, but it's not that important of a degree. People need to remember and understand 33rd degree is not the most important degree. Like, it's genuinely not. The third degree is the most important degree. A problem I see is that you blurred Masonry with your personal political histrionics, and personal views on this channel. It would have been fine on your other channel. Well, I mean, when I said I'm a failure, I didn't mean failure on this channel. I'm actually really proud of this channel. It could be better, don't get me wrong, and it should be better, but I'm happy with where it's at, and if it continues to grow, all the better. Um, I talk about failing as in failing. I haven't failed yet, but to see these lodges continue to struggle no matter what I do is where I feel like a failure. In terms of, it's hard to say. I mean, the problem is, I've said this so many times, you cannot separate the condition of Freemasonry from the condition of the world. And that includes both its political, economic, and social conditions. Like, there's all sorts of evidence that poor economic conditions harm Freemasonry. That as consumer confidence drops, Freemasonry drops as well, both membership and attendance and involvement. So, yeah, if I think the president, for example, is doing things that are going to harm consumer confidence and harm people's lives and harm people's well-being, then I'm going to call that out. And whether you say it's fair to call out the voters or not the voters who put him in there, I suppose people can decide that for himself. But I think it's fair as well. Um, am I York right or Scottish right? I am Scottish right. I'm not a Freemason, so what degree am I? You're no degree. But again, the problem is you cannot tell the difference between, you know, the Mason who never shows up and the Mason who shows up to, the Mason who never shows up to a lodge and the Mason who pays their dues. Sorry, the Mason who never shows up to a lodge and the non-Mason. What practically is the difference between the two, other than a card in their pocket and $100 and $100 a year to $200 per year? So Freemasons are not doing well. I mean, Freemasons do fun stuff. Sometimes Freemasons do spooky stuff. In the sense that we in Freemasonry have, open house. We'll do like special events, Halloween events. I've seen Masonic lodges host scary movie nights and things like that and do paranormal investigations. Um, it's not spiritual, though some people may have spiritual views of Freemasonry, and it's definitely not occultist. It's a little bit all of the above. I mean, it's a social club. It installs park benches and whatnot. Absolutely. Many Masonic lodges do that. But ultimately, at its core, it's a very formalized and very traditional guys' night out, or social club out. And there's also the Order of Women Freemasons, which is for, girls' night out as well. Uh, well, I mean, within a lodge, you don't discuss politics because politics is not going to be relevant to what you're doing, and it's going to divide people, right? On this channel, it's my own personal channel. So if I think, for example, that having Donald Trump in the White House will harm Freemasonry, then I'll talk about it on here. Within a lodge, it's our responsibility to just deal with the harm and not cast blame or lay blame, right? So within a lodge, we would say, for example, we should be willing to say gas prices are going up. As a consequence, less and less members are able to attend. So how do we deal with that? Do we have less meetings? Do we add a virtual option? Do we try to look at uh, um, what's the word, lobbying the city to create a public transit stop? Do we organize carpools? You could argue that's a somewhat political discussion because, you're talking about high gas prices and how it's affecting membership, but you're not casting blame. Um, After the lodge, you can, right? On this channel, though, I'm here to talk about why Freemasonry is struggling, and there's lots of different reasons, but one of them is political conditions and political situations. Um, and so, yeah, right? Gas is whatever it is. Gas is surging. I think gas is 4.14 right now in the States, average per gallon, 4.13. There's a reason for that. And if we don't think about that reason and think about what we can do to make it be different next time, that reason's going to get a lot worse, and the effects of it are going to get a lot worse. Um, Religions and politics cause division in the workplace. They do. But religion, well, politics, not so much religion, although I suppose it can. Politics affects the workplace. And those effects are being felt. It's not, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why Freemasonry is in the state it's in, but political conditions and social conditions and economic conditions are part of it. You can't pretend like they're not. Um, okay, I mean, I'm one dude, uh, but if I tainted for you, then so be it. My goal isn't really to, I mean, certainly my goal isn't to taint Freemasonry for anybody, nor is it to have people fall in love with Freemasonry, though if they do, great. Like I'm grateful for example, like Courtney for joining Freemasonry. I think that's awesome. There are other people I know on this channel who told me they're interested in joining Freemasonry, and that's wonderful, and I'm grateful for that. But it's not the purpose, right? If after I talk, people view Freemasonry as good or not good, so be it. All I can speak is the truth as I see it and the truth as I understand it, and let the chips fall where they may. Um, for a long time, not just me, but a lot of people have been holding their tongues, and it's not led to anything better, and it's not led to any stronger of a craft or anything stronger altogether. Now, there are exceptions. Don't get me wrong. There are places where Freemasonry is growing. One of the things that is causing Freemasonry to grow is certain lodges are implementing requirements for attendance. Um, Alonzo, I wouldn't say that. I think Mr. Keeps, I mean, I don't know him well, don't get me wrong, but I think based on what I've seen, he has the moral compass to be a Freemason if he were to choose to go to be a Freemason. But just keep in mind, let's say, for example, he lived in the United States of America, let's say. One of the things he needs to recognize is if Freemasonry is struggling in the United States, one of the reasons is the political climate, is the politicians in charge and the decisions they're making and how it's affecting civic engagement across the board. So, um, so Mr. Keeps or Stephen, yeah, you don't know him, so I'd be hesitant with that. Um, I would just say, I think he has the moral compass to be a Mason. Sell us on it. So this, I'm not trying to sell people on Freemasonry, right? That's not the purpose of this channel. What I can tell you is what's in it for me, and you can decide for yourself if you think that's good for you or if you think that's not good for you, right? One of the benefits I got from it is it makes me feel closer to my grandfather, who was a Freemason. So that's something I really appreciate. Um, However, in general, there's a lot of things in it for the average Joe. One, there are certain skills that you will develop and that you will learn. You will grow and you will learn more about your ability to handle meetings, right? Especially if you have a job that requires you to chair meetings on committees, like how to run a motion, how to make the motion pass, or not, like not make the motion pass, but how to properly organize a motion, to have discussion, to run a meeting, to administer a meeting, to store records, because Freemasonry is an administrative pursuit as much as it anything else. You also develop skills when it comes to memorization work. You'll develop, there'll be people around you, and you'll develop social skills in a social club. Social clubs have been shown to improve people's health and people's well being, to grow life expectancy. You're more likely to get visitors in the hospital, things like that. You have a social safety net. So, if, for example, you fall on hard times, you can talk to the lodge and request assistance for your financial struggles. There's a ton of benefits, but there's also a ton of drawbacks. If you want to become dedicated to it, you have to give of your time, sacrifice of your energies. Burnout is very real. Unless you decide you want to join and just do it when you want to do it and don't when you don't, which is fine. And you're welcome to do that. But then you need to recognize that the lodge may suffer for it. Um, Well, Reba, I don't think maybe I don't think Americans are brainless. Maybe some are. I don't know. But gas is gas. It's not going down, and it's not going to anytime soon, I don't think. VHS, I hope that made sense. Light free. So no, you do not have tremendous power in society, and other Freemasons will not just do you favors that you can't talk about. I mean, a Freemason may do you a favor. Um, if if you ask, they don't have to, but they may choose to. Certainly, being a Freemason, you know more people, and because you know more people, there are more people you can ask for a favor if necessary. But that doesn't mean necessarily that they have to. And by the way, you could probably get the same favor and the same support from joining a football team, for example, or joining a flag football team. Do you have to pledge your soul to the unfathomable? No. You don't pledge. I mean, first of all, I think in a lot of traditions, you can't pledge your soul to anything because your soul does not belong to you. It's not yours to give away. Um, but no, Freemasonry is not making requirements on your soul, just on your, really, to be perfectly frank, just on your pocketbook in terms of your dues, but theoretically, maybe part of your time as well. Um, well, I guess I did. You can take that to me whatever you want. But I still feel like my soul is doing pretty good. Um, at least I think it's doing pretty good. Some may argue it's worse for wear, but so be it. Let's give it another 5 minutes, then we'll start doing something else, or start talking about something else. I don't like that term spiritual. I'm not a big fan of spirituality as a general rule. Like some people may find Freemasonry to be spiritual. In the same way, people may find music or their favorite sport or their favorite movie to be a spiritual endeavor. I mean, I guess every Mason has to define spirituality for himself. It's not religious, is the key thing. As above, so below. Well, I mean, you try to transport yourself to paradise. That's generally a good rule of thumb and a good way to think about it, I suppose. Try to be now what you will be hereafter, um, is something I tend to kind of agree with. It's not, I mean, the phrase as above, so below, I don't believe it's a satanic doctrine. I've never heard it, for the record, but I've always kind of liked, well, when I say I've never heard it, I've never heard it in a Masonic context. I've read about it a couple times, but I've always taken it to mean, in the same way the Eastern Star, the five-sided Eastern Star, points downward because you're trying to say you want the heavenly virtues that it represents to come down here on earth. Generally, you want to think about as things are in heaven, as much as possible, try to recreate them here on earth. You're not going to succeed fully, obviously, especially if you believe in heaven as a real place, but you can try your best, and that's kind of got to be the goal. I mean, Freemasonry is closer to sacred geometry. Ultimately, Freemasonry is a social club. How much things like sacred geometry come into it from a day by day basis is up to each individual Mason. However, when it comes to what Freemasonry, like certainly geometry is incredibly important within Freemasonry. Geometry is maybe one of the most important parts of what it means to be a Freemason from a metaphorical sense. Because initially, Freemasonry or stonemasonry, they were keepers of geometric knowledge, right? That's what they were. They were keepers of geometric knowledge. And they would pass on that geometric knowledge to their apprentices. So, yeah, geometry is important to Freemasonry, but for many people, it starts and ends as a social club or a social group. Hello, Finky. Well, to be one, ask one. You need to find a Masonic lodge in your area, send them an email, approach them, and express your interest in joining. And you go from there. No worries. Thank you. I hope you hit the like button and the subscribe button. Thank you so much for being here. Please take a moment, hit that like button and that subscribe button. I would mostly appreciate it. Well, I don't know what interdimensional knowledge is, but you're not going to get that through Freemasonry. Oops. You're not going to get interdimensional knowledge through Freemasonry. Very sorry to disappoint you. Bro looks like his family's related 15 generations back. Well, I think we're all related 15 generations back. We're going to give it a couple more minutes, and I'm going to start talking about no, you're going to be very disappointed. Um, Holocaust Remembrance Day, Yom HaShoah. Yeah, I got what you're saying, Zachary. I was making a joke. Please hit like and subscribe. There are ceremonies, yeah. You can call them ceremonies, you can call them rituals. There's a ceremony or ritual for when you join Freemasonry. There's a ceremony or ritual for when you advance your Freemasonry, when you become a worshipful master. So yeah, there are ceremonies and rituals, and they're very important. A lot of people think they provide some type of hidden knowledge or whatever it is. They don't. That's not what it's about. But what they do is create bonds of brotherhood through shared experiences. So ceremonies are incredibly important. They're a very important part of Freemasonry. Yes, leaving is okay if you dislike it. I have no issue with people leaving Freemasonry. What I don't like is when people leave Freemasonry and then come back, which is a pain in the butt, because when they leave, it harms the lodge, or when people remain members of Freemasonry but never show up to lodge. Both of which you can do, and people do all the time. It drives me crazy, but they do it. Or you can just come when you want, not when you don't want. Do you have a crucifix or Bible? I do. Have a Bible somewhere around here. I don't have a crucifix. Or do you mean the lodge? Lodge is one of the volume of sacred law. Very often it will be a Bible. Well, it could be a Quran, a Torah. I've seen that as well. In many cases. No, because Freemasonry is not a religion, but by the same token, we're not going to be banning or reviling religions as well. The latter. I mean, I wouldn't even say a lord. We usually use the term supreme being, VHS, BMX. Supreme being could be Christian, Hindu, Sikh, Muslim, Jewish, whatever it might be. It's not a specific one. Or it could be an acknowledgement of holy presence of some sort, which is probably closer to me and to what I believe. So, yeah. Many people of all different faiths join Freemasonry. No, Freemasonry is not doctrinal, right? That's one of there's kind of ethics within Freemasonry, but there's not doctrines or it's not doctrinal. One of the things that separate it from a cult, yes, free thought is encouraged to a certain extent. They'll push it, but to a certain extent, yes. Um, Hello, not XIE. Freemasonry is a civic institution or a civic group, like a club that has existed for almost 350 years, give or take, maybe a little bit more than that, depending on what time you want to use. Think about it like a club or a civic group or a civic organization. Light free, I definitely don't handle everything well with strength and patience, but okay. Um, but no, if you start criticizing them too much, they tend to not like that and will have responses. But if they do, so be it. All right. Today is Yom HaShoah, also known as Holocaust Remembrance Day. This is from Prime Minister Mark Carney, where we remember the 6 million Jewish men, women, and children who were systematically and senselessly murdered by the Nazi regime in one of the darkest chapters of human history. We also honor the heroes who fought against the horrors of the Holocaust. The Holocaust showed humanity the horrific consequences of ignorance, hatred, and complicity. It is a reminder that looking away is not a passive act, but an active betrayal. At a time when the Jewish community is facing resurgence of anti-Semitism at home and around the world, our government has taken action by introducing the Combating Hate Act. This proposes to make it a criminal offense to intentionally and willfully obstruct access to places of worship, schools, and religious or cultural community events. The responsibility to confront anti-Semitism belongs to all of us, and that responsibility begins with remembrance. Our remembrance is vigilance, so that never again is always true. Our duty is deliverance from intimidation and hate. Our goal is transcendence, a society where Jewish people and all Canadians can live openly, freely, and safely. The thing we need to keep in mind when it comes to the Holocaust is the Holocaust targeted Jewish people, obviously. It also targeted gypsies, LGBTQ. It also targeted Freemasons. A lot of people don't realize that. The Nazi regime persecuted and imprisoned thousands of Freemasons, viewing them as ideological enemies and part of a Judeo-Masonic conspiracy. Though not prioritized like Jewish people, Masons faced severe persecution, including the dissolution of lodges in 1934 to 1935, confiscation of property, imprisonment in concentration camps, and as political prisoners. The Nazi Party considered Freemasonry as a hostile ideology due to its principles of tolerance and potential international ties. Freemasonry doesn't have international governance, but it does have international recognitions. Despite the suppression, some Masons continued activities in secret. A notable example, Liberty Sherry. It's a lodge established in 1943 under the Estwergen concentration camp. The number of Freemasons killed under the Nazi regime, we don't know. I've heard anywhere from 60,000 to 200,000 as the number. I would tend to go probably around 100,000. In some cases, they were killed because they were Freemasons. Very often they were killed because they were political prisoners, Jewish, whatever it might be, and also Freemasons. They based it on, for example, that Freemasonry supported tolerance, which the Nazis do not at all, and that Freemasons were tolerant of those from other cultures, other races, other religions. Also, it made a convenient boogeyman for Hitler to push against and fight against. Because regimes like that will always want a boogeyman to push against. Thank you for that, Mackenzie. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. So to everybody, observing Holocaust Remembrance Day, let's use that as a way to remind ourselves of the terrible things people can do and our responsibility when we see these terrible things to speak out against it. No, that is not the case, Elite Bloodline. I also want to mention, look, I am proud to be a resident of downtown Windsor. I'm proud to work in downtown Windsor. My Masonic building is located in downtown Windsor. I want to note this article from CTV News. Downtown Windsor safety, cleanliness improvements highlighted in new council report. City Council will receive an update on progress under the Strengthen the Core Downtown Windsor Revitalization Plan when it meets Monday. Council approved the $3.2 million initiative in May 2024 with 7 action items aimed at improving safety, cleanliness, and business growth in the downtown core, including efforts to address the impact of mental health issues, addiction, and homelessness. According to the report, the overall sense of safety downtown has improved, with fewer respondents saying conditions had significantly worsened. 36% in 2024 compared to 20.37% in 2025. More respondents also said safety had somewhat improved, rising from 4.4% to 11.64%. Ward 3 Councillor Ronaldo Agostino, who represents downtown, said progress is being made. That doesn't mean we have our head in the sand and we need to do some more big things, and that doesn't mean we have our head in the sand and that we need to do some more big things. We're down here, we see what's going on, and we need more changes, he said. Those are all discussions we're going to have on Monday, and I think part of the conversation will be, okay, we've seen what's worked, and I want to know what hasn't worked, and I want to know what the plan is for the things that haven't worked. The hospitality industry, the nightlife aspect of downtown, has seen major increase in the past 12 months. A year and a half ago, people were putting the nail in the coffin for the hospitality industry in downtown Windsor. Right now, it's booming. You see lineups again in downtown Windsor. But that's not all downtown Windsor has to be about. Cleanliness is another area showing improvement, with 24% of residents expressing satisfaction with the general cleanliness of streets and sidewalks, up 9% from 2024. Agostino said the focus now should remain on unresolved challenges. Mental health, addictions, and homelessness for sure. Those are the big ones and the ones that are very difficult because we don't have the budget, we don't have the people, and we need help. We also can't let things keep going the way they're going. We have to do something, and the conversations have opened up again, and we're going to keep looking toward that. Those are the big ones for me. Freemasons should celebrate my birthday. Everyone should celebrate my birthday. If you're going to celebrate my birthday, please consider a super chat. Give me an early super chat for my birthday. Just $2, you hear your thing right out, text to speech. Thank you for the heart. That's very kind of you. September 2026, and September 2025, and September 2024, September 2023, September every year. I'm not going to give the day, but know it's September. Hello, Adrift Happiness. Thank you for the heart. That's very kind of you. I hope that your day is going well. Don't forget, I'll be back on at 1 a.m. I mean, I may or may not turn to Christ one day. Who knows? I don't think I have to repent. And Windsor is not a cesspool of Canada or anything else. I am a Virgo. But I've read what it means to be a Virgo, and it doesn't seem to me that I fit those characteristics at all. Oh, well, then maybe I am more like a Virgo than I think. I never thought of myself as much of a Virgo, but who knows? Maybe I am. We're back. We're just going to keep hanging out. As always, please hit like, please hit subscribe. I would truly, truly appreciate it. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral, please let me know. Hello, Harry, you are wizard. Oi, oi, indeed. How's it going? Thank you for being here. What is new? And I hope that if you are a wizard, you will hit that like button and subscribe button. You don't even have to hit it as a wizard. You can just hit it with your finger or your magic wand, whatever you prefer. And actually, bylaw officers logged 575 patrol hours, which is awesome. Joining Freemasonry, you don't worry about joining. You're kind of putting yourself ahead of the cart before the horse. If you want to be a Freemason, you don't have to worry about joining at the start. Just worry about approaching the lodge, expressing your interest in joining, and you go from there. That's the beautiful thing about it, right? With Freemasonry is you take the first steps and then you just go through the process and see what happens. And it's not as though you take that first step and automatically you're a Mason. You get to know the guys, they get to know you. You talk more with them, they talk more with you, and you go from there. You like my accent, so that tells me you're not from around here. Where are you from, Harry? You are a wizard. We made it to 3,811 subscribers. I'm hoping to get over 4,000 subs soon. We got 189 to go. So let's see if we can make it. I would be grateful. Well, no. First of all, don't approach the lodge if it's freezing cold. Stay inside where it's nice and warm. Send an email to the lodge. I didn't mean literally approach. You can literally approach. But I meant more metaphorically with a nice email or a phone call. Okay. I mean, uh, you can be disappointed in me. Um, I mean, I don't know. The problems that we're seeing in the world, they exist for a very specific reason, and that reason is going to continue until people realize why they made the mistake and not repeat it. But I mean, you're welcome on the chat. You're welcome to hang out. If you're here, that's wonderful. If you're uh, find a different channel, that's okay too. I mean, the problem with this idea of just agree to disagree, like at a certain point, you're not just agreeing to disagree, right? It's the same thing with Freemasonry in some sense. Like I have my view on what Freemasonry should be. People have a different view on what Freemasonry should be. Um, I can agree with that. We can agree to disagree, but sooner or later, when the rubber hits the road, Freemasonry will either exist or it won't exist. Um, so you can agree to disagree all you want, but sooner or later there's consequences to going the wrong direction, and there's consequences to the lodge and to others. And it's the same thing with politics. We can agree to disagree, but sooner or later people are going to get hurt. They're already being hurt, you know? And as well, Freemasonry gets hurt by the political decisions that are made. Um, I have been talking about Masons for the past 2 days. I've been talking about Freemasons for the past 2 years. I've been talking about Freemasons for the past 2 decades in some sense. I don't really go out very much. Because what's more fun than being here on this stream chatting about what's more fun being here on this stream talking to Jesus is King 7490? Nothing I can think of. Luis Acosta, when you say they, do you mean Freemasons? Or do you mean YouTubers? Or do you mean politicians? I assume you mean Freemasons based on this channel, but we were just talking about politics a second ago. Thanks, I like these shirts. I have like 4 shirts like this. Um, so I have 4 shirts that look like this, so I'm always wearing them. People think I'm wearing the same shirt every day. Rather, it's just I love this shirt. I love the material. So I have 4 of these shirts. Yeah, I'm more on the side of Lewis on this one. Adrian, nice golfer shirt. Thank you. Please hit like and subscribe, by the way, if you would be so kind. I am currently at over 3,810 subscribers, so thank you so much. I was working my butt off to get over 3,800. So now we need to focus on getting to 4,000, which would be really, really cool to get to. So let's see what we can do. And we're going to give it a little bit more time. I'll be ending this stream soon, but I did want to mention Holocaust Remembrance Day today. Freemasonry, again, was also targeted by many people within the, Freemasons was also targeted by the Nazi regime. Many Freemasons lost their lives throughout kind of the reign of terror that was the Nazis. It's important that we keep them in mind as well. And also we celebrate the resilience of Freemasons and the resilience we saw within Freemasonry. For example, having Masonic lodges exist within concentration camps is pretty incredible. None of it. There are no Freemasons on Epstein's Island. We don't own property. Well, I guess some Freemasons own property. We don't own any on Epstein Island. At least not to my knowledge. I heard that there was a former Masonic temple on the island, but I have no idea if that's true or not. Many old Masonic buildings get purchased privately and repurposed. Maybe I'm right twice. Maybe I'm a broken clock. But we're going to see what happens. I would say if people think that what's happening right now with Donald Trump could not have been predicted or could not have been foreseen, then they're going to make the same mistakes over and over again, and we're just going to get people worse and worse and worse and more. I mean, I'm not even a Christian, so I'm not going to pretend like I was offended on a spiritual level, but even this stuff of attacking the Pope and posing a picture of himself as I think it was supposed to be Jesus, I have no idea. That stuff's insane. All right? But he was always, to a certain extent, this way, and we're just going to get more of it. I don't know if there is or not. I've never seen any proof of it or any pictures of it, so I'm questioning that quite strongly. But it's not impossible. I mean, Freemasonry had Masonic buildings everywhere. Like I said, a lot of them got sold. The first, a lot of these buildings get sold, get repurposed, get whatever it might be, get torn down, but they very often do get sold and repurposed. I actually once found a Masonic building that was somebody's home. It was built as a Masonic temple, but it was too small to be used as numbers grew. So I think it was in the 1950s, if I recall correctly, it was sold and converted into a private residence. But what's interesting is they kept the Masonic symbols on the house. That was up in like Northern Ontario somewhere. I forget where exactly, but we were going there for like a camping trip. Not so sure about some of that stuff there, Mr. Keeps. Actually, I think, if I recall correctly, Trump expanded drone wars or drone strikes to Somalia. And I think he had more drone strikes than Obama. I can double check. So keep in mind, this is AI, so you need to be really I think that's where we're in disagreement. He was always off the deep end. He just fooled a lot of people. Um, but he was what he was. Based on available data from organizations like TBIJ, I don't know what that is. Um, the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, you can take that for whatever it's worth. Donald Trump's first term saw a significantly higher volume of drone strikes compared to President Obama's, often exceeding the total count of Obama's 8-year presidency within the first 2 years of his administration. BBC News reported 2,243 drone strikes in the first 2 years of Trump's presidency. According to Council on Foreign Relations, Obama authorized 542 drone strikes over his entire 8-year tenure. I mean, he was always an asshole. He was always a jerk. He was always cruel. He was always mean. The difference is his targeting was always focused on Democrats and the people who disagree with him politically. Now he's targeting it at religious leaders and the people who supported him because he requires 100% loyalty or he hates you because he's a monster. I mean, his donors, he got way more single donors than anybody else, and they were all very pro-war. The people in his cabinet that he was picking were always hypocrites. J.D. Vance famously once upon a time compared Trump to Hitler, then turned around and said he's actually a great dude, which shows you can't trust anything he says. Same thing with Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, he surrounded himself with sycophants and hypocrites and liars, and he took money from people who wanted war to exist. And yeah, he didn't fool everybody, is the point. He didn't fool everybody. And a lot of it was the people who were always on the side of getting pooped on and treated badly and insulted were people who were his political opponents and the political opponents of people that he liked. So they didn't mind, right? They didn't mind him mocking a disabled, reporter, or they didn't mind him mocking families of fallen soldiers. They didn't mind him mocking Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton. Neither did Tucker Carlson mind that, or Candace Owens. None of these people minded the cruelty and the meanness. They didn't mind him posting an image of him beating up somebody labeled CNN. But now that his ire and his cruelty has turned to the Pope and turned to Jesus and turned to Tucker Carlson, now they have a problem with it, right? The hypocrisy is pretty astounding. Well, I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for me and my own personal opinions, which is they haven't got rid of anything. They're not going to get rid of anything. All they've done is increase the likelihood of Iran having a nuclear weapon, increase the cost of oil, increase the cost of gas. We have a lot of dead civilians, none of whom asked for this to happen, none of whom asked to live in Iran, by the way. Including dead schoolgirls. And I'm not really sure what we've accomplished, except create a regime, give the regime a younger, more hardline, and more angry leader. This is not the same shirt. I have 4 of these shirts. I just really like these shirts. They're very comfortable. Now, I've always made it clear, and I will say it again, I know some Freemasons who actually support the Iran drone strikes. Who support the action in Iran, excuse me. I know some Freemasons who support drone strikes as well. You can't speak for Freemasonry. Every Mason has their own political opinions. I can speak for my views, and I can also say I think that we as Freemasons need to pay attention to these things, because it's absolutely the case, and without a doubt, that what we're seeing right now in the world is going to harm civic society and civic institutions, including Freemasonry. There's almost no doubt about it. I can't see how gas prices going up, consumer confidence going down, is going to do anything but make people less inclined to attend Freemasonry and more inclined to work longer hours just to get by, or to save their money and not spend it on the gas to get there. Which is why, by the way, we as Freemasons should be lobbying our governments for public transit. If we don't have a public transit stop close to our building, we should try to get one so Masons who don't drive can attend that way. We need to be talking about maybe carpooling options. So if brethren can't afford to drive to lodge, we can pick them up. We need to be thinking about all of these things because it's incredibly dangerous and harmful if we don't. There is hierarchy within Freemasonry. We didn't overthrow Islam. Islam is still there. Is there like some form of hierarchy? The U.S. didn't overthrow Islam. There is within a lodge as worshipful masters. Within, there's districts, there's district deputies, there's a lot of different things within the lodges. So yeah, there is hierarchy, but keep in mind it's not like a cult in that it's unquestioned and it's democratic, unlike cults, right? You vote on your leadership. So yeah, William, we didn't overthrow anything. And if you think we're going to, I think you're going to be disappointed. I think it's going to be a lot harder to overthrow the government and Islam than you expect. No, we're not working on overthrowing anything, Islam or otherwise. That's not our goal. That's not our purpose. Nor should it be. That's not what Freemasonry should be about. We're going to keep hanging out for a bit longer, wait to see who joins. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. I don't think, when you say permanence, I'm not really sure what that means. Like, I don't know if any religion is permanent. I think religions have changed over time and maybe they will change in future. So I don't think necessarily Islam or Christianity or Judaism is, like, as a rule of nature, permanent. But I do think the Islamic faith, the Christian faith, the Jewish faith, I think faith in general is incredibly resilient, right? Is incredibly resilient and is a lot harder to overthrow than you think, nor do I think it should be overthrown. I don't believe in overthrowing anyone's religious beliefs, but even if I did, faith is very resilient because when people have faith, they're willing to fight to it and they're willing to fight to the death for it in many cases. And we probably shouldn't be encouraging that, That's true. I do get the terms mixed up sometimes. I will say the Islamic faith, the Christian faith, the Jewish faith, they're pretty resilient. Any faith, Hindu, Sikh, faith is resilient. I don't believe that, William. I've known a lot of Muslim men, people of Islamic faith. They don't seem to be in a cult at all. But that doesn't disprove the point. A cult is pretty resilient too. Yeah, I think a lot of people were willing to overlook those deep personal flaws, but they were always there, and I think they allowed people to misunderstand what they were seeing. Like when I always heard he was anti-war, I always thought to myself, based on what? Based on drone strikes, he's not. Based on taking out, Soleimani, he's not. And it's like, based on expanding drone strikes, he wasn't. What really saved us, in my opinion, the first time around was the fact that he had within his cabinet a lot of people who were willing to push against him and push against his pick your term, monstrosity. Like, they weren't willing to just say, they weren't just yes men. He surrounded himself with a bunch of yes men who don't really believe anything except whatever is necessary to advance them in politics. Um, and so, now there's kind of no guardrails. There's nothing off the railings, right? And you saw that when he tried to steal the last election. That to me, I can understand. I don't necessarily get it, but I can understand voting for Trump the first time. It's very hard for me to accept voting for Trump the second time. Um, and I do think the people who did, there is a responsibility they have for the current state of the world we find ourselves in. Because we saw at the end, it was incredibly clear exactly what he was and exactly who he was. Even during the election, like, you know, um, he and his supporters implying all sorts of horrible things about Kamala Harris, about Joe Biden. It was cruelty, and it was obvious cruelty. And it was cruelty masquerading as just jokes. And can't you take it? And none of it was good. And here we are, right? And light free, you can still support Trump fully. I mean, you're still on the channel. I'm grateful for that. And there are many Freemasons who support Donald Trump. I mean, I said it once before. Um, I was once at a Masonic lodge where the person had a Donald Trump bobblehead on his desk of his secretary. It's like, so be it. But I didn't like it in the lodge because I thought it was too political. But also, I just didn't like that in general. But so be it. So Freemasons do not. Um, So Freemasons do not discuss politics in meetings. Freemasons are not allowed to discuss politics or religion in lodge. We can discuss it outside of lodge, but we're not allowed to discuss it in lodge. Um, However, as I said, the political climate, the political situation, the political decisions affect Freemasonry. So, like I said, for example, if I bring up that the rising gas prices are resulting in fewer members being able to afford driving to lodge, and therefore we need to consider lobbying for a transit stop or organizing a carpool system. I mean, that's talking about gas prices. That's a political discussion. It's just a political discussion without asking specifically like what we think about the politicians who put in the higher gas prices. But Freemasonry itself does not discuss politics or religion in lodge. I discuss it here because I think whenever you have a politician doing bad things, it hurts Freemasonry. When I say bad things, I mean bad things to the country. Freemasonry is not a form of Satanism. Freemasonry is not a form of any. Freemasonry is not a form of any religious belief. If you want to consider Satanism a religion, Freemasonry is not satanic, nor is it anything else like that. Really, Germ. I don't know who told you Freemasonry is a form of Satanism, but they were wrong. They are lying. It is not. Do some Freemasons um, believe in a God? Well, I mean, I believe that you genuinely did what you thought was best, but I mean, it's not that you chose evil; it's that you were negligent, right? I mean, I'm trying to think of the the example, right? Like, um, I may, for whatever reason, and who knows why, close my eyes when I'm wheeling down the hallway of my apartment complex. If I run into somebody or I run over somebody's toes, I can say and legitimately mean I did not mean to do that. Maybe I closed my eyes for some reason that made sense in my head, but I was negligent. in that I should have known I might hurt somebody, right? I should have known that these actions could cause harm to people. And, I mean, there might be some people who voted for Trump. I don't know who legitimately did it because they liked the idea of people being harmed. I do think, honestly, there were some people in the States where they genuinely got off on the idea of, they liked the idea of illegal immigrants, undocumented people, people of a different color, um, Muslims, whatever it might be. They liked the idea of them being heard. I don't think that's impossible. I think some voted just because they were rich and wanted tax cuts. But I think a lot of people turned a blind eye to what was obvious, and now we're dealing with the consequences. So, no, I think, I don't know. Here's a better example. If I travel from England to Canada and I never bother to check the rules of the road or how to drive in Canada, and I end up driving on the wrong side of the road, I can't say, well, I sincerely did what I thought was right. Well, I can, but if I cause an accident, that's still on me. Um, you know, uh, and it's one of those things where the question now people have to ask is, okay, why did you think it was the best choice? How was he able to fool you? Not just you, but how was he able to fool what 42 42 million, I think, is the number of people who voted for him, give or take. Like I said, I can understand voting for Donald Trump the first go around. Like, I can get that. I cannot understand or imagine in any sense not seeing what he was round number two. Um, and not seeing that, a lot of people are hurt by it. So, and I think, it's easy to to look now and say, well, I was, made a mistake, I was fooled, or I didn't, or whatever. But a lot of people are dealing with the fallout of it right now, unfortunately, and I don't think that fallout is going to get any better. I mean, I never minded Joe Biden or Obama. I've said before, I was relatively impressed with Joe Biden. Now, I was grading him on a curve, and you can argue that's not fair because, why does anybody get to be graded on a curve? But coming into office after January 6th and after what January 6th represented, having such a divided Congress, the Infrastructure Act, the CHIPS Act, those weren't nothing. And I don't think a lot of presidents could have got it done. I don't think Donald Trump could have done that. Like, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Chips and Science Act, I think those were the big things I can think of off the top of my head. It was a 1.2 billion investment. There was the Inflation Reduction Act. There was the Chips and Sciences Act, which I think boosted semiconductor manufacturing in America by, I could be getting this wrong, so forgive me if I did, but I think it increased chip manufacturing in the United States by 50%, which is also a pretty decent and a pretty good, I would argue, national security issue, right? I don't think we are, but if we are, then so be it. What makes you say that the way it's experienced? By the way, please hit like and please hit subscribe. I would be most appreciative. And I mean, America, I don't think was ever a quote unquote paradise. I don't think it's possible for a country to be a paradise. However, because there's always going to be work to be done, I think America did a lot of really great things in the world. Even under Donald Trump, whatever you think of him, I think America still does a lot of great things. I also think America has done a lot of not so great things. But I think overall, like credit where credit is due, for the good that America does. It depends probably on where you're at in your life. I think, yes, in a lot of ways, America has been nightmarish to some people, but America's also been incredible to a lot of people and incredible to the world. And what matters is progress. Like America's going through a really rough patch right now. I think it's fair to say. But I think that with civic engagement, civic organizations, civic groups like Freemasonry, I think it can grow and I think it can be made better. Um, it's already great, but it can be better. There's no doubt that anything, any country, any state, any person can always be made better. And I think Freemasonry can help it be better. Hate from Dubai. There you go. Hate from Dubai, indeed. Well, love from Canada. And actually, I love Dubai. When people say crime was so high, I don't think that's true. If you look at statistics, actually, compared to the 90s and the 70s, crime was actually relatively low. I think it dropped. I'd have to look at those stats again, but I know, or at least I don't know, I'd have to double check. I believe crime in the United States of America was fairly low, um, relative to the 90s. But why are you sending hate from anywhere? Can you hit the like and subscribe button while you're hating? I don't know who Saul Energy is. Um, and I mean, I don't feel like this is a victory exactly. I mean, I'd rather none of this be happening. I think that's true for most people. There might be some people who like the idea of these things happening because it just proves that they were right. I don't. I don't really consider. I mean, if this is a victory, it's a pretty Pyrrhic victory to me, right? Because I don't know what, other than I guess I told you so, which is pretty hollow thing to say. I don't know what the actual benefits are to living in a world in which President Trump is, well, either president or being this way. Nothing in my life is getting cheaper or easier because he's president. And I know I'm Canadian, but even still, America sneezes, the world catches a cold. So it's a very hollow victory. Um, Love, and people are being really hurt. And again, for me, it's from this channel's perspective. I think about what that hurt will affect for Freemasonry. Um, well, I mean, I don't know how to answer that question of was God wrong because I don't necessarily believe in the Christian God. So, because to my understanding, you can't be like God can't be wrong by definition, right? Like if I understand correctly, under a Christian perspective, um, um, God is omnipotent and omnipresent and knows everything and everyone. So he could not have been wrong. It could have been that he favored someone he knew would become evil as some type of object lesson to others to not take the favors of God for granted. Um, right? I'm not really sure how to answer. I mean, to me personally, since I don't believe in the Christian God per se, or that perspective, I can say, yes, God was wrong to favor someone who ended up revealing himself as evil. See, I think that's the fundamental difference. You say he changed. I say he just is what he is. He just tricked people. I don't think you can trick God. So I think in the biblical case, it might have been more a matter of he used it as some type of object lesson. Um, oh, I don't think it's a bad event. I think it's bad events. And who knows? Maybe things will turn around. I mean, there's in theory 2 years left to go. We'll see if he leaves. But yeah, I mean, nobody knows what the future holds for sure. All you can do is look at the best possible, make observations and make judgments based on those observations. And I think what you observed and what I observed were very different things when it comes to President Trump. And if you want to say I got lucky, and that's all it was, not literally lucky, because I don't feel lucky to be living right now per se. But if you want to say I got lucky in that it just happened to turn out that Trump was always what I thought he was, then okay. Might be worth, but that's a very, maybe the better question to ask is maybe we actually saw something that was legitimately there that you did not want to see because you were so upset with liberals or whatever it is. And what things did you choose not to see or did not want to see? Yeah, God cannot be fooled. So, again, now we're getting into theology and theological lessons. So the idea of can God be wrong? I mean, that's not a question I can answer. You have to talk to your priest. That's like the old question of can God create a stone so heavy he can't lift it? Like, I don't know. Well, I'm happier today, Courtney. Sometimes it's nice to lose your shit, but I hope you're doing well also. Thank you for being here. Please take a moment, hit like, and hit subscribe. I hope you're doing well. Lessons are taught. So maybe from a biblical perspective, again, if you are starting from the idea that God cannot be wrong, maybe the reason for favoring someone who then revealed himself to be evil is as an object lesson to not maybe take favors for granted. That's just a guess. I have no idea if that would be true or not true, but that's just a guess. God's power cannot be limited. There is nothing. Oh, this is a fun conversation, but keep in mind this channel is about Freemasonry. And, theological, I'm not smart enough. I don't know. That's weird. Why did it hide that? That's not a. YouTube was weird with that. Next time you bump your elbow, I'll be in your. Well, I mean, if I was being negligent, then you should call me negligent. I mean, accidents happen. Not every bump is a consequence of negligence and should have known better, but sometimes they are. Sometimes they are. I will, and for the latter, I'll be the first to admit I'm not one who gives a lot of grace necessarily. I don't know. I suppose you'd have to define what is meant by grace. Like my concern with the idea of grace is it encourages the same behaviors repeatedly, right? What's the term? There's a term for it in like during the banking crisis, moral hazard. We were talking, it was a relatively brief topic, Courtney, but we were talking about Holocaust Remembrance Day today, because obviously, as I've talked about in the past, Freemasons themselves were also targeted during the Holocaust, and several thousand, tens of thousands of Masons, probably 100,000, I think is a safe estimate, were targeted, in many cases killed during the Holocaust. We also talked about downtown Windsor, where I'm both a resident and my Masonic Lodge is located, and the steps taken to improve it, which I think is important because we as Freemasons are part of this thing called downtown Windsor. How do people get into Freemasonry? Not XIEA. They contact a Masonic Lodge and express their interest in joining. You can send an email, call, write a letter, whatever it might be. But yeah, that's how they do it. Eric, you're not wrong. They should remember Rwanda as well. There's actually a really good movie about that. Peacekeeper did it, right? Rwanda, Peacekeeper. Shake Hands with the Devil, I think it was. Um, Shake Hands with the Devil, This Journey of Romeo Dallaire. It's the primary Canadian documentary covering the 1994 Rwandan genocide based on Lieutenant General Romeo Dallaire's book about leading the failed UN peacekeeping mission. A 2007 dramatic feature film adaptation also exists. You're not wrong, it'd be good to remember it, but you can remember, and you should remember, the Rwandan genocide while also remembering the Holocaust. It's not an either or. Whoa, Sayok, that's kind of mean. Let's not say that. I'm going to pronounce this terrible, Vaisakhi Day. I hope that you're doing well. Please hit the like button if you haven't done so yet. I don't know anything about that holiday, but I'll look into it and I'll see if I can learn more about it. He did not, oh, he's not, Freemasons not even a secret society. He just did not like anything that preached tolerance, respect, kindness, democracy, or all of the good things that exist in the world that he does not represent or did not represent. I know a couple, I believe. I'm trying to think. I believe I met them in the States. Sikh, or I think they're a couple Hindu as well. I met so many Masons over the years, and I've been so lucky to meet so many Masons that, yeah. He was threatened by that as well. He didn't like, because I mean, I would suggest fascism or fascist organizations do not support privacy as a general rule. Is on not secrecy, but privacy. Yeah. Is Arnold Schwarzenegger a Freemason? To my knowledge, he is not a Freemason. And that is kind of ironic, but that's always been the case for those type of ideologies, right? Good for me, not for thee, right? So it's unfortunate, but that happens very often. Um, well, no, I do see it. I mean, you're not wrong about that. And many people have brought that up to me. Um, the idea that have far too strict standards with people and expect too much from people. I guess my defense, for whatever it's worth, is relatively speaking. Look, I said it yesterday on the stream. I will go, I guess I can't say toe to toe. I will go wheel to wheel, toe to toe, pick your term, with anybody in terms of everything I've done and accomplished for and with Freemasonry, and everything I've done and accomplished for and with in the world. Um, you know, I will also go toe to toe and wheel to wheel with anybody when it comes to all the mistakes that I've made, which have been many. The difference is when I've made a mistake, in some cases, it was deliberate action that I, believed in at the time and then realized it was wrong, to sometimes actions through negligence. I've always stood up, I've apologized, I said I've messed up, and I've at least tried to do better. If a Mason comes to the lodge and says, I'm sorry I missed lodges, and then does better, then okay, I will say fair enough. But same thing with, and there have been a couple, like Dave Smith, who I'm not a fan of, but he did say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Um, that I can at least accept. Um, but it's not that I expect nobody to make mistakes. I've made mistakes. I think the problem is I'm not seeing any accountability for why those mistakes were made. So it makes me think they'll just be made in the future. Because I can assure you, there is somebody coming along who is going to be worse than Donald Trump. And he's going to use the same playbook as Donald Trump did. And because people don't recognize that playbook, he's just going to get into power. And that's what I find so frightening. Um, can an anti-cosmic Satanist be a Freemason? I don't know what an anti-cosmic Satanist is, but I feel like probably not. You need to believe in a supreme being to be a Freemason. I don't know what an anti-cosmic Satanist supreme being would be. If it's yourself, I mean, I would have a lot of questions about that. But what I would also say, in fairness, is don't do the work for the lodge, right? If you, um, if you if you're an anti-cosmic Satanist and you want to join Freemasonry, there's no harm in going to the lodge, expressing your interest in joining, and going from there. That's and just explaining what you are and what you believe. That's perfectly fine. If the lodge decides, what, that just doesn't count, that's not a supreme being, then so be it. But you can still ask. That's okay. Hello, hello. Was President Gorbachev in 1980 Russia? I don't believe he was. I mean, Freemasonry was outlawed in Soviet Russia. It did not return to Russia till 1995, if I recall correctly. Maybe I don't know when he passed away. Maybe later in life he might have, but I don't believe so. And so be it, Mr. Keeps. I think that's kind of just where it's at and where we are. And nobody can predict the future for sure. So I guess what I'll say is we'll see what happens. I mean, I suppose it's always possible that things will turn around and somehow things will get a lot better quickly. I don't know how that would be, but anything's possible. But yeah, I do think it was predictable. I do think it is predictable. Again, I'm not suggesting the specifics. I'm suggesting the generalities. So could we have predicted a war with Iran? No. Could we have predicted greater and greater warmongering from Donald Trump and more people being hurt and killed and just general, I don't even know what the word is, psychosis? Like, yes, because that has always been his nature. The difference is he never targeted it at Christians. He never targeted it at the Pope. He never targeted it at Tucker Carlson before. Now he is. But he was always this way. It depends on who your enemy is, right? I'll take it. I got the red. Yeah, James, what a theistic Satanist and a Luciferian. I've been told there are Luciferian Freemasons. I've never met a Luciferian Freemason, so I don't know what they necessarily are, like what they believe per se. But yeah, I think anything's possible, I suppose. But I had one experience with a Satanist. He contacted the Masonic Lodge, expressed his interest in joining Freemasonry. I taught him about Freemasonry, what it is, and he ended up deciding he did not want to join because he said, as he put it, it turns out the tenets of Freemasonry or the ethics of Freemasonry are not compatible with the lodge, so or with Satanism. So there you go. Hello, Mike Picola. By the way, everybody, if you're still here, please hit like, please hit subscribe. I would be truly grateful. We are at 3,813 subscribers. So thank you for that. 3810. You're one of the few people, Mike, who actually spells revelation without the S correctly. Everybody on the stream always brings up Revelation and they say Revelations. I find it funny that Revelation gets brought up since this is about Freemasonry and Freemasonry is not a religion. But nonetheless, um, I have no idea what Revelation 18 says. I understand it's about the end of the world. I guess Mr. Keeps, and maybe this is me and maybe I'm just a jerk or an asshole. Maybe people have accused me of being that. I found that people don't change. People kind of are what they are, for better or worse. Our job has to be, when I say our job, I mean society has to be um, to do our best to smooth out as many of the rough edges as we can. We're never going to get rid of jerks. They're probably never going to change. But we can create a society in which we can relatively limit the harm that they do. Because we can create such a strong society with such a strong safety net and strong support that even if people are out there harming others or being jerks or whatever it is, society as a whole can absorb it and carry on. The problem is when society becomes so weak that we cannot deal with the harms caused by others. So yeah, in my opinion, whether it's an olive branch or not, I don't think people change ultimately. People just are what they are. It's human nature. Oh, the best piece of advice. Um, I'm less and less inclined to think people. I think people just are what they are. Um, what is the best? People can deceive, but what is the best piece of advice you received when you were a new Master Mason? See, that's an interesting question because, and I like the way that was defined, um, because normally when people ask that question, they'll ask it about when you were just a new Mason. Um, like to be a new Master Mason specifically. That's an interesting question because that's your third degree in. So presumably you've already have learned a little bit about Freemasonry at that time. Um, and I think more about the advice I got when I first joined. I mean, the best piece of advice I've ever seen given to another Master Mason is take your time and don't rush into appendant bodies. And that's the advice I give to new Master Masons. Take your time, don't um, take your time, don't rush into new appendant bodies or groups because you're going to burn yourself out. Maybe, Mr. Keeps. I worked in a jail for a lot of years. I was a probation officer for a lot of years. I've been a Freemason for a lot of years. Whatever people are is what they are, in my experience. But maybe I'm wrong. Husafel, when you say what does the title Freemason mean, what do you mean? Like the free in Freemason? Because Freemason itself, what it means is member of a Masonic lodge or Masonic body or Masonic group. Um, right, that's what the term Freemason means. Um, the term free from Freemason comes from the freedom to travel, to earn your wages, and the type of stone that was used by expert craftsmen called freestone. And also if you rush to get things accomplished, all you're doing is not dedicating yourself fully and enough to your mother lodge. You go to Scottish Rite if you have the time for it. Do York Rite if you have the time for it. That's what you need to do. I have not met with Masonic the Hedgehog, but he'd be awesome to meet with. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. We're going to give this another 10 minutes, then we're going to end the stream, maybe 20. But yeah, people leave Freemasonry all the time. Um, right? People leave Freemasonry all the time um, for a variety of reasons. Very often, what they do is they just stop showing up to lodge meetings. Thank you, Jeremy. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, I got quite angry and yelling, and I'm not embarrassed or ashamed by it. I know that it's going to piss a lot of people off, and so be it. But I'm right. So, the beautiful thing about being right is I get to be right. Grandmasters Gala. I mean, that's awesome. I don't know if you're going or not, Courtney, but if you are, I'm sure it'll be incredible. It's a beautiful building. Gregory, you find a Masonic lodge in your area, you approach them, you express your interest in joining. Oh, I got a buzz. Let me know, does that buzz, is it too much? Like, was there a buzz that you guys just heard? Because I find sometimes it can be distracting. Maybe I have to make sure to turn the buzzer off or mute everything. Let's give this another 20 minutes. I'm not always right, but I'm right about this. And when I have been wrong, I've apologized in the past. Okay, not. I mean, maybe I'll have to make sure I turn my thing back on. Um, no, I know what I hate to let you guys be too comfortable. That's for sure. Courtney, thank you for being here as always. Say hi to your brothers in Texas for me. Um, and I hope you're going to have an excellent, excellent day. It's like one of those things where, and I suppose in some ways, if I'm wrong, so be it. But again, you use observation and common sense. And when you observe what Freemasonry is, the problems therein, and your experiences, common sense tells you what's going to come. Well, people never change. I mean, I never, I did, when I made a mistake, it wasn't because I was a different person, right? It's because um, I was acting on either information that was incorrect or I thought the outcome would be different or whatever it is, right? It's not like I'm trying to think, it's not like I was X, now I'm Y. It's like I was this, I thought this would be the best way to proceed. And or it's not even that, it's more just like I wasn't paying attention, I was neglectful, like for example, to use a very general example, there's been times when I haven't been paying attention to what I've been doing and ran over somebody's toes in my wheelchair or bumped into them, and I apologize. Or in lodge, I'm doing some work and I forget about a certain rule, I forget to file something on time, I forget to file a piece of paperwork, I fill out the piece of paper incorrectly, I apologize. Or I was mistaken about what the requirement was. I thought you had to get this thing done in 10 days. You have to get this thing done in 20 days or something, or 20 days early. But that's just another example of, a mistake that I made. I'm not suggesting I changed as a person. I just came across new information or different information. And if it's information I should have had and didn't because I wasn't paying attention, because I wasn't focused on things, then that's what I apologize for. Um, yeah, you thought the outcome would be different. Like recently, for example, I completed some documents and work for the Masonic Lodge, but I misread a requirement, and so I messed up, and that put the lodge in a tough spot because they had to redo the work that I screwed up on. So I apologized. But the point is, I should have known better. I should have been smarter, and I should have seen the mistake I was making and redone it. But the fact that I didn't is worthy of apologies, right? Um, if they had, for example, if the information I needed was hidden from me, or people weren't telling me, or people were, there was no conceivable or reasonable way to know, I wouldn't have apologized because I would have just said, how could I have known any different? But in this case, it's obvious I should have known different. I didn't, so I apologized. Um, that's kind of the thing, right? It's it's one thing if you just don't know, you just don't know, and how can you know? When I was in professional wrestling school, um, one of the things the coach said to me, or not just to me, but to everybody, is whenever you are doing a move, learning something new, if you messed it up on the first time and you said, I'm sorry, he would say, why are you apologizing? You're just learning this. This is your first time doing this. If, however, you messed up on the 20th time, he would have a very different approach to what you did. And he would say, you should have known better, right? Um, yeah, you should have known better. Um, so, yeah. And then in that case, if it was at the 10th time and they messed up, they would apologize. If they were decent, good students and decent, good people, they would take their lumps, they would get yelled at, and then they would say, I'm sorry, I should have known better. And then they would practice to make sure they actually did know better and learn how to do it. So you apologize, you recognize that it's your fault that you don't know it, and then you do better to do better the next time. Um, you know, I always liked that lesson, right? Somebody else once said, it's okay to make mistakes, but it's not okay to make the same mistake twice. And the way you don't make the same mistake twice is you take your lumps, you recognize that you messed up, and you don't make excuses. You just say, yeah, I screwed up because I wasn't paying attention. I was being negligent. I wasn't looking at what I should have seen, and you do better. In the wrestling example, you stay late after class and keep practicing the move till you get it right. Um, but I know adults tend not to think that way, right? For most adults, it's like, I'm an adult, I'll do what I want, and I don't really owe anybody anything, but, it is what it is. You can do that as well. I don't think that would have worked with this coach. He was a great coach, and I loved him, but he was also terrifying. And when he yelled at you, boy, howdy, did he go at you. Um, which is fair, you know? All right, we're going to give this. I remember once upon a time, after practice, because we weren't paying attention, which we should have been, a whole bunch of us left water bottles in the dojo where we train, like empty water bottles. We didn't throw them out or anything. So he made us do 500 squats. It was 100 squat for every water bottle. I don't do squats. I have no legs. I did dips. So lifting myself up and down on two chairs, like dips, tricep dips. It was absolutely exhausting. But yeah, I'll say this: we learned, right? We never left any empty water bottles in there again. That's for sure. Um, we made sure that it's funny. We made sure that I remember at one point I was an idiot, and this was after this. I left. I was leaving, realized I'd left my water bottle in the room, ran all the way back to not ran, but wheeled all the way back to get it as quick as I could. Just made it before they had locked the doors, and thank God, because if I had left that, oh my gosh, it would have been terrible. You lack humanity. All right, then I lack humanity and compassion. I like to think I've done some pretty compassionate things in my time, but maybe I haven't. Who knows? Um, I guess everybody can decide that for themselves, whether I'm evil or not. I like to think of myself as trying to do good and trying to hold other people to the same account as me, but maybe not. Which, so be it, you know? Um, I think one of the things I've learned, and this is a good lesson for everybody in the world, is you can't control how people view you, nor should you care how people view you. At the end of the day, you just kind of have to do what you think is best and go from there. And um, I mean, I know that that's kind of a vaguely hypocritical position because under that theory, no one should care what I think of them when I'm telling them to like do better or show up to lodge or whatever it is. Um, and I suppose that's all. It's kind of like there is no truth claim. It's naturally contradictory. I don't know if I've got that figured out exclusively, but what I would say is I'd like to think I've done a lot of good things in the world and a lot of things that I would change if I could, but so be it. People can decide for themselves what they think of me. Um, it's not my place to tell somebody what they should think of me. So if Mr. Keeps thinks I'm evil, then I guess I'm evil. But I like how Craig says evil might be a bit strong. I'll appreciate that and I'll take that, Craig. Maybe just mildly ungood, to use a different term. Oh man, there's a fly in here. We're going to give this another, let's say, 10 minutes, then we're going to end the stream. Because I have to run to the Masonic temple to deal with something quickly. But we'll give it 5 more minutes. We'll just see if anyone else jumps on to say hello. No specific topic points other than what we talked about before. Today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Freemasons were targeted during the Holocaust, along with many other groups, but obviously Jewish people primarily. So we'll see. If any other Masonic lodges or bodies have mentioned anything about it. I do think it's important they remember that Freemasons were targeted during the Holocaust, especially because, there are stories of great Masonic resilience um, during the Holocaust, particularly Liberty or Cherished Liberty Lodge in the Erstwergen concentration camp. Um, And so I think it's worth celebrating that. I think it's worth remembering that because it shows just how much and how strong Freemasonry can be and how much it can do for the world. Thank you. And how much it can keep people going in challenging times. I mean, I would imagine that within Freemasonry, maybe those people suffering from being in a concentration camp and how terrible that must have been found some peace and comfort and maybe happiness as much as you could find anything like that through their Masonic rituals. I mean, there's stories and reports of it written seeming to indicate that it kept people going um, through these challenging times, which is awesome and shows the good of Freemasonry. Thank you, not Zia. Most people say I'm ugly, so if you think I'm good looking, I will take it. $6 gas is coming, according to this. Okay, so I'm mega authoritarian and evil. Also turns out I was right. So you could take that as I was lucky, or you can take that as maybe I'm not any smarter than you, but I was willing to see things you weren't willing to see, which might be possible as well. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get $6 gas for sure, but I would suspect we will. Will gas go over $6 a gallon in USA? By the way, this is why I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. I think we within Freemasonry, we need to start looking at our Masonic buildings. And if we're in a town that has public transit, see if we can get some public transit stops at our buildings or start to organize carpools. There are brothers who find it too expensive to make it to lodge. Right? There are people who find it way too expensive to get to Masonic lodges right now because gas is so expensive. I would ask and say there are other ways to get there: bike, walk, transit, or ask for a ride. If you're not doing any of those things, I don't have a lot of sympathy. But at the same time, I would say also it's completely fair for us as a lodge to try to do a couple of things to help, like organize carpools or try to get transit stops. And especially if your Masonic lodge is primarily older members, you can use that as a way to lobby for a transit stop because getting old people out and active usually is something municipalities try to do and try to support because it keeps them healthier for longer and is less of a strain on social services and social service systems. Even looking at getting a courtesy minibus, consider yourself. I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not. I'm going to assume not. It's hard to tell. Like a lodge could maybe organize a courtesy bus to lodge. It would be tough. But there are many municipal programs that they will organize courtesy buses to your, like to special locations if you're old, if you're in a home, if you're disabled. And so, yeah, I think it's worth exploring. And I think it's worth asking that. Like, can we get, hey, we have 4 or 5 members, 10 or 20 members, who knows, who have mobility impairments. Can we get a special um, uh, transit route here? You know, I think that's worth exploring and worth checking out for sure. It's funny, I was once traveling and I got on a bus and the bus driver asked me, I was the one person on the bus. The bus driver asked me where the stop was or where I was going. I told him the Masonic Temple. The Masonic Temple was actually a block ahead, but this wasn't in Windsor, but he actually stopped at the temple for me, gave me a special stop, which made my life a lot easier. So thank you, bus driver. It was really appreciated. You weren't right. You just are right. That's one way to look at it, I suppose. All right. You better. I don't want to enslave anybody. It would be a pain in the butt. Could you imagine having to enslave humanity? It's one of the things people who always have these Masonic conspiracy theories, like ignore the insane logistical impossibility of enslaving humanity for a second and how insane that is. Just why would anybody want to? Why would anybody want to do that? The headaches it would cause. I mean, my heavens, you'd always be at risk of being overthrown because some other group would just come and try to take you over because they would get pissed off. You could try to be as benevolent as you want. It's not going to make a difference. A percentage of people are going to hate you no matter what. Like, it's kind of like the old 1984 thing, right? The amount of time, effort, and money Big Brother spent on trying to maintain its hold over the world. It's so dumb. Like, why? Or over Britain, anyways. Like, why? You could spend that money on building schools and roads or whatever it is, or just take off to some island somewhere, you know? Why not just do that? Just take off to some island and live your life. Why are you trying to enslave people? It's stupid. And it's dumb. And I don't understand the point of it. And by the way, Freemasonry, aside from it's logistically impossible and it's a stupid idea and a stupid desire, Freemasons are not doing that. So there you go. You're wrong on 3 levels. I don't know what consensus gentium means. Well, I mean, when you say all my brother Masons, I don't know how you, I don't know. I just got some very interesting and very supportive comments back to me, some privately, some during the chat saying that actually they agreed with me for a variety of reasons because I'm not alone in my burnout. Um, I don't know if any Masons consider me a fanatical zealot. A lot of Masons think I'm wrong, and a lot of Masons think I demand too much of brethren. And a lot of Masons think, yeah, look, some Masons like me, some Masons hate me, some Masons have no opinion of me, most don't, and so be it, right? I mean, they people can think whatever they want of me. Masons can think whatever they want of me. Um, what matters is what I see in the mirror, which is someone who is, gave it his all and continues to give it his all. And there's that old expression, find the thing you love and let it kill you. Well, maybe that's me in Freemasonry. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's one thing I've noticed. I think most Freemasons, even the ones who don't like me personally, have a level of respect for me and what I've done. At least it seems that way. I could be wrong. I don't know what's in their heart. I have met a Mason called Mason. Um, yeah, it's hard because you don't know what's in people's hearts, right? And a lot of Masons, but you don't have to like me. Masons don't have to like me. We have to be able to sit and lodge together. Um, Yeah, but you seem to imply that that says something more about me, right? The fact that people like me or don't like me, or the fact that you like me or don't like me, or think I'm evil. Like, the point is, I'm not going to refute those claims one way or the other. People can decide for themselves. I think I'm good, I guess. I don't know. I don't even really know what that means to be good, to be honest. It's kind of one of those questions of like, what does that actually mean? I know, again, I'm not religious. I think from a religious perspective, there's this idea of no one is good, but you kind of become good through your belief in some type of higher power. I don't think even Freemasonry necessarily teaches you what it means to be quote unquote good. I think Freemasonry teaches you what it means to be a good citizen, a good brother, a good part of the community. I think those are the ethics of Freemasonry. To be good in a moral sense, people can decide that for themselves. And whatever you want to think of me, you go right ahead. Emulation kid, I am a Freemason. I've been a Freemason for just about 20 years. I started this channel to promote the ways Freemasonry was and is relevant to the communities in which it's located, and to talk about, how much I both love Freemasonry as a concept, but also lately how frustrated and angry and pissed off I am at the decisions being made, um, and to turn my passion for Freemasonry into a profession. So there you go. I'm a member of 5 Masonic lodges, which is crazy to think. Who knows for how much longer? But right now, for 5 Masonic lodges. I've never met any Mason who considers Satan to be a supreme being. I've had one. I've had one Satanist actually contact the lodge. Um, um, I had one Satanist contact the Masonic Lodge, express his interest in joining, but then when I explained what Freemasonry is, he decided he didn't want to be one because Satanism and Freemasonry are kind of at opposite ends. A Satanist, I understand, believes the supreme being is himself, whereas Freemasonry, it's not just you. Freemasonry is not just about you. Um, Emulation, I mean, that's awesome. I don't know if you say someday, if you're still too young, or if you mean someday because you're just too busy right now. Both are completely acceptable. You shouldn't join Freemasonry until you have the time to dedicate to it. But yeah, I know. I think it's awesome that you're interested in joining. Just join to contribute. Join to give something of yourself to something greater than yourself. Decisions made by whom? Decisions made by our Grand Lodges and some Masons as well. That's the right attitude. Join for what you can give, not don't join for what you can take, you know? Um, it's about contribution, contributing to something bigger than yourself and better than yourself. At least that's what it should be. Thank you, Contradictional Gamer. I really appreciate that. For every $2 or up super chat, I have a text to speech app now that will read it out to you, text to speech. But even $1, I'm genuinely grateful for that. So thank you so much. Don't join the Freemasons to steal their furniture, please. I would appreciate if you did not. I would appreciate it if you did not. We're going to give this another, I keep saying time and then we keep going, but people keep showing up, so let's give this another. You should never join anything just to join. That's true. You should join because you think you can contribute to it and you think you can make it better. That's the reason to join anything. Yeah, don't steal furniture. It'd also be really hard to steal furniture. All right, guys, we're going to end this stream. I will be back on at 1 a.m. tonight. Thank you all for being here, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye. See you later, Rondo. Thank you for being here. It is emulation, kid. When you say emulation, are you saying emulation as an emulation ritual? Like, is that a Masonic reference? Sorry, I said I was going off and I just saw that. Is that where the reference comes from? Awesome. Okay, well, I will see you guys later. Have a good night. Well, in any case, I forgive you for your insults. Sorry, Emulation Kid, is your name... In any case, I forgive you for your insults as well as your other offenses. That is what we are meant to do as Christians. I will apologize for my name calling, though. I mean, I appreciate that, Mr. Keeps, but I understand you're not apologizing for me. You're apologizing because you're a good Christian, and that's what you're expected to do. But no apology necessary, at least on my end. My feelings aren't hurt by people calling me whatever they want to call me. It doesn't hurt me one way or the other. I understand, though, the apology wasn't for me. The apology was to be in line with your faith. Yes, imagine joining the Freemasons to the furniture. Emulation Kid. Sorry, did you hear the question? I'm really curious because that term emulation, that's a type of Masonic ritual stream, a type of Masonic ritual history. So I'm just curious if that's the case. We'll give it, let's say, another couple minutes if you answer that question. Okay, well then I appreciate it. But again, no apology needed. I've never cared what people think about me. Nobody should. Emulation, light free. It's a so emulation ritual. So within Freemasonry, one of the biggest mistakes people make about Freemasonry is that they they think it's all the same ritual everywhere. It's not. Ritual is different depending on which jurisdiction you're in and depending on which jurisdiction you're in, which country you're in. So in the States, they tend to use what's called um, Preston Webb ritual or York Rite ritual. In Canada, we tend to use emulation, which is based on um, an equivalent to from England. It's the same as basically UGLE ritual. It's called emulation. It was developed in about 1813, and it was a combination of ancient and modern ritual that were put together. I mean, so I've gotten angry many times, so I can't judge having a temper, that's for sure. Sometimes you need to ask yourself, is the temper, conductive or conducive to whatever you want, or not conductive or not conducive? I mean, for example, if I'm trying to get something and I think anger might be the best way to approach it, maybe I'll use anger. The problem with doing that too much is eventually people will just start avoiding you and you're going to be in a worse spot than you were at the start if anger is your go-to solution. It's like the bully on the playground, right? Sometimes more flies with honey than vinegar. But I mean, sometimes you also should just say whatever you want to say, right? I'm not a big fan of him, but I think he's wrong about almost everything in life. But one interesting thing Jordan Peterson did say once upon a time was, he said, you might as well just tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may. So, if I think someone's an idiot, why not just call him an idiot? If you think I'm evil, why not just call me evil? Like, tell the truth as you see it and let the chips fall where they may. It's an interesting idea. I don't know if I completely agree with it because I can understand how that can lead to some challenges in any type of interpersonal relationships, but there's an interesting theory behind it anyways. So yeah, you think I'm evil, just tell the truth and say you think I'm evil. So that can create problems. The way we deal with that, though, is well, then I'm evil, as Kool-Aid says, is through recognition and regularity. So, for example, I'm allowed to visit Texas, even though Texas has different rituals than my lodge, emulation. However, if they were to discover that Texas was doing satanic rituals, they would remove recognition and I would not be able to visit them. So that's the way they try to deal with that. But it partially requires every lodge to be open and honest about what they're doing. You're not really evil, you just pay for companionship. Well, there you go. I'm not really evil, I just pay for companionship. Sometimes, you have a bit too much fun. By the way, Kool-Aid, hit that like button and that subscribe button if you will. That companionship has cost me a lot of money. I'll take looking like Wilson Fisk. Again, he's most people just say I look ugly. Thank you for the like. I keep meaning to leave this stream, but then people keep showing up, so I just keep sticking around. So maybe I'll give it another 5 minutes or so. I want to leave by 4:30 at the latest. No thank you that you're not going to like and subscribe. No thank you. I'll take Terry Crews. He's a very handsome fellow. No thank you that you don't like the stream. What is the no thank you of which you speak? You're welcome. I don't always have a positive attitude. As As people have seen in previous streams, very often I can have a very negative attitude, and if I get angry, I get angry. I try to balance it out, is all I can say. All right, Kool-Aid. Well, fair enough. What time am I next on? 1 a.m. Eastern. Whenever I give times, it's always Eastern Standard Time. Again, Light Free, I assure you they are not always chill. You missed yesterday's stream, clearly. All right, we're losing people now, so I'm going to end this stream. I'll be back on soon, though. Thank you all so much for being here. Have a great night. See you all 1 a.m. Thank you, Austin Weeks. Not always the case, but sometimes. See you guys soon.